Well, today on the podcast, I have Mr. Andrew Price joining me in the studio. Andrew, thank you for joining me, buddy.
No, it's a pleasure to be here. Awesome opportunity, so thank you very much.
So good to have you on because I've been watching all the shenanigans you've been up to recently because we chatted to Ian Baker last week.
Yes.
And you're obviously gearing up for World Time Attack 2023.
Yes, we are. So that's all systems go to try and get we've got two cars, Ellie's car and mine, Daniel's car, the fastback, to get ready. And yeah.
Far out. Because, mate, what are those cars?
So I'm running an i30M fastback. It's the ex-Hyundai World Time Attack car that they built, I think, in 2019 for World Time Attack. They campaigned that and then ran it at a whole heap of different promotional events and end festival. But it was basically a stock standard car. They had Sammy from DAS come in, design the aero. They fitted a roll cage, some prototype development stuff. So it got the prototype facelift intercooler, turbo, and that was basically it. It was a production car that they ran. It even had production dampers in it.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, stock. So when we took it out for the first time, we came into turn 4 at Sydney Motorsport Park, and it's downhill into the braking zone. So there's a heap of load. Hit the brakes for the first time, and it just started bouncing, and the splitter bounced across the ground, and you're like, cool, okay, this is what we got to start with. And it still handled really well. Like the handling was great. We just had too much aero load for it. Because
you smashed them. So you were testing at Sydney Motorsport Park, like what was that, a week or two ago?
I think about 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks
it's a
ago.
bit of a blur at the moment.
I'll bet it is. And you were punching some reasonable times as well, weren't you?
Yeah, 141.9, which is, I mean, for club sprint class, that's quite respectable. The fast guys are going 134 now, like Jimmy's Evo, but that's Bosch Motorsport. It's making 500 kilowatt at the wheels. Then you've kind of got a whole heap of cars. Jonathan Wong's Supra, which is an incredible build. Kyle did all the aero on that. It's amazing. So we've done well. It's quicker than all the VWs that have kind of gone there. It's enough for like a top 15 or 20 finish last year, but we've still got way more to go on the car. So it's just a great starting point.
Mate, I have no doubt, because what you guys are up to at the moment is absolute madness, and that was, part of why I reached out to you, because, you and I have known each other for a long time, and I have followed your motorsport journey and been involved in parts of your motorsport journey over the years. And as I watch you, starting to do all these cool things, I'm like, man, you got to come and talk to me about all this.
Yeah.
So you're doing all this craziness at the moment, but mate, it wasn't always this way.
No, it's taken a lot of mistakes, a lot of time, a lot of effort. Basically, just learning and trying to get to this position where we potentially. My goal is to end up in TCR, and then I'm at that age now where I want to then progress into helping other people get into motorsport that don't have the same opportunities. It's just kind of altruistic, or everyone kind of wants to go down that path. But from my background, my parents had no money. So I didn't get into motorsport until I was about 17, starting in hill climbs and motorcanas and stuff like that in a 1985 Honda Civic wagon, which anyone in the car scene 15 or actually longer than that, 17, 18 years ago would remember from hill climb days or mountain runs. And then it just kind of progressed from there. So I want to go back and help people.
So that was your first car. So what was it? Honda Civic
wagon.
Mate, have you got photos of that somewhere? You don't have to show me now, but boy, oh boy, we're going to have to share some of those.
It's not the sort of car you would expect, but it was hilarious.
That's classic. And so what, you were doing like Mount Cotton and stuff, or where did you start?
So I started when I was in school doing motorcanas with the Holden Sporting Car Club.
Yeah, right.
And had some really good success in, I think it was C3 was the class. Won a few rounds here and there. Then ended up doing hill climbs in a Starlet and a Datsun 1600. Datsun 1600 was the next car I had after it.
Which one was the better car, Starlet or Datto?
The Datto was an ex-rally car.
Oh,
so it was a pick. And that was kind of my first experience in performance workshops. So I got absolutely bent over by a workshop down on the Gold Coast. Built the engine, did a complete and utter mess of it, and I think I was 18 and lost almost 10 grand or something.
Welcome to motorsport.
Exactly. So this is kind of the learning curve. It's probably what's pushed some of my interests these days with
Oh,
what I wanna do.
absolutely. And trying to guide people, because that's the thing, mate. You have, look, I can't think of a nicer way to say it. You've had the shit kicked out of you with some of this stuff over the years.
Yeah, it's look, I don't like making excuses. It's I've picked the people that I've wanted to work on the car, and whether that's through limitations of budget or whatever else, it's still my choices. So I've kind of had to learn from that. But yeah, like we had some awesome opportunities that we kind of never ended up fulfilling because the people that I kind of had working on the car couldn't do it. And I had my own business, I had my own work, so I had to try and rely on those other people to kind of do it. So it's just one of those things. You live and learn from it.
Absolutely, mate. You got to make all the mistakes first. I keep saying to my accountant, I wish I could learn by not running headfirst into the fire, but unfortunately, that seems to be the only way I learn.
Yeah, exactly.
Mate, just scold yourself and then go, "Whoo, probably shouldn't have done that. All right, let's try again."
Exactly. It's just one of those things. It's the same with business. Like you've had people where, and I've had people that you employ and you're like, oh, this was a mistake.
And clients that you've employed that, never pay their bills or,
Exactly.
those sorts of things. And you're like, yeah, whoops. But, now you can spot the red flags a bit better.
Exactly. You learn from it.
Yeah. And you always watch out for the people that are fronting, but then can't pay you $1,000. And you're like, huh.
So there's a lot of those. And the banking industry is kind of weird. So that's like, I don't know if you're ready to go into that, but...
I'd love to, mate. Jump in.
The industry that I work in is debt collection. So we've had clients that just haven't paid. Solicitors, finance companies, they just don't pay. They drag it out. Like we have 60-day terms, and when you're getting paid next to nothing for doing the job, it makes it incredibly hard. So
Absolutely. And I think running your own small business, mate, that gives you lessons on life that nothing else will. Because the consequences are quite brutal.
Yeah.
When you've got your own bills to pay and people don't pay you or they long pay you or they just stuff you around and you're there going, good.
Yep. And you've got your responsibilities for everyone else.
Absolutely.
ATO, your employees,
mate.
yourself, your family. So
and they've all got zero chill.
Exactly.
So,
they don't care.
No, they don't care. They don't want to hear your bloody sad story. You've just got to sack up and figure it out.
Yeah.
And tough way to learn. Okay, so so you did a bit of hill climb, you did a bit of stuff. So did you say the Holden?
Holden Sporting Car Club. So
What were you driving?
Honda. You could run anything.
Oh, could you?
So,
Cool.
yeah. So Holden Sporting Car Club was like the club if you wanted to do Carnacross, motor carners. It was like a $20 or whatever the joining fee was. So because to get your CAMS license at the time, CAMS now Motorsport Australia.
Yes.
You had to be part of a CAMS affiliated club.
Right.
Almost everyone joined the Holden Sporting Car Club because it was the cheapest. So they ran regular motor carners, and that was kind of between that and mountain runs. I kind of learned how to drive.
Legends. Do they still run? Do they still operate?
Yeah. They
Really?
still operate.
Same format. Same.
Yeah. Nothing's really changed. And so same as like the MG Car Club was then who would run most of the hill climbs. So they ran them at Mount Cotton. Then you had. There's a whole heap of others. There's Brisbane Sporting Car Club. There's tons. Like if people want to get into motorsport cheaply and just start with something like motor carners, hill climbs, there's so many old fellas there that have so much knowledge.
Well, see, this is great because you can basically just teach me, and I'll get you to pull your mic up a little bit closer there, mate. You're not quite up in its business.
Not quite?
So, we're trying.
There we go.
Yeah, this is Andrew's first time on a podcast, so I'm trying to teach him how to do the podcasty things. So I'm just getting into motorsport at the ripe age of middle age, and I'm going to take my Barra Falcon out and do some things. So as a new person looking to get into motorsport, tell me more about these things.
Look, I mean, in Queensland, southeast Queensland, your obvious choice, you've got to identify what you want to do. So
Skids.
You want to do skids.
A bit of drifting. I like the Carnacross. I like that.
Motor Carn is really good for that. So like you can join up for the Holden Sporting Car Club. I don't know what the membership fee is now, but it's next to nothing. You can get a speed license through Motorsport Australia, which is like $120, I think, at the moment.
And what's a speed license?
So you've got different levels. Speed is what allows you to do motor carners, hill climbs, sprints. Anything that's not door to door, basically, that's on tarmac.
Yeah.
Then you have
you against yourself.
Yeah. Then you have circuit, which is your next license up.
Yeah, right.
So that's
more
expensive.
I don't want to do door to door because I significantly lack talent, which is why I like the stuff where it's just you.
There's a lot of people that lack talent that do door-to-door stuff.
Oh, I know. That's why I don't want to be there either. I don't wish to add to the lack of competence in that pool. So, and, you know, mate, good luck to anybody that wants to get out and do it. I just know that I'm not built for it.
Look, there's plenty of categories. I think you'd be surprised. You probably enjoy some of them. So, like, production touring is more relaxed, particularly your state-based stuff, and pre-production. Like, there are categories for people that that are a bit more chill.
Yeah, bit of grandpa. Like, I don't, you know, we're not racing for sheep stations.
So some of them still treat it like they're racing for sheep
and that's
stations.
what worries me. I'm like, mate, I've got nothing on the line for this. I just like to be able to take my car home in one piece.
Exactly. So yeah, like motor carnas would be perfect for that.
Yeah, right.
So you can go around, just cut hoops around whatever the course is. Skid control also run some.
Oh, I've done a skid
well.
control. I went out with a friend who's got a what's he got in that? I think it's a supercharged BRZ or the white one. It's a weapon.
That E80. Oh no, E85 Yo I think is a blue one. But yeah, like there's.
Those skid control days are unreal. And I've just seen their compound. Have you been out there yet?
No, I haven't. I've seen photos. Dude. It looks awesome.
Yeah, I've got to find out where that is. But I totally, Travis Roberts was out there on the weekend. He was posting pictures from there. And I'm like, oh, God.
Mates with Trent, and Trent's one of their instructors. So you see all the photos and everything from the day. And Trent's a great driver. So, like the skid control days, if you want to learn, get some tuition, are a really great entry level. For that kind of stuff. But yeah, otherwise, if you just go to the Motorcana days, the hill climb days, you can find the events on Motorsport Australia, or you can find them on the club websites.
Yeah, right. So Motorsport Australia is probably the right place to go to find the things to attend.
Yeah, Motorsport Australia is the easiest, but you can even just Google like Southeast Queensland Holden Sporting Car Club, Google that, MG Car Club, those kind of things. That'll bring up their website. It'll have their list of events. There'll be a membership form, fill that out, then you go and join Motorsport Australia.
Because, see, I wouldn't even consider joining those because of the names of them, because I don't have an MG and my Holden is a ute, and even though it's a good little skid pig, that's more of my tow car because I can fit tyres and things in the back.
Look, almost everything that ran at Holden Sporting Car Club was not a Holden. There was only one or two. Everything was just like people that are little like home built vehicles that had like Mini Cooper engines and Pinto engines and all that kind of stuff that they would run in. Like they were specially built for for Motorcana stuff.
And see, this is the joy of these conversations is every time I talk to somebody, I learn stuff that I didn't know yesterday because you don't realise what's out there and what's available unless you've actually been shown. Yeah.
And like I had no money. Like I was a paralegal at the time, 17, so I was earning next to nothing. So it was all I could afford to do. I was struggling to get to work some weeks. But yeah, like it was the cheapest fun you could have, and you can go out, thrash your car. That was it. And the people there were great. Everyone's so friendly. There's not really any serious competition. It's just fun.
And that's it. It's just big fun because my problem is even though I'm a bit older and a bit more grown up now, because of the work I've done and the stuff I've had to do, I'm tighter than a fisher's behind. So I have no interest in trying to play big boy games. Yeah. I just want to have a bit of fun.
Have fun, yeah.
And just enjoy the vehicle and the camaraderie and become a better driver and, all the really simple things because, I've worked on the sidelines for so long and it's wonderful to be able to
You got to go out and enjoy it.
Oh, got to go and play. Because, again, I only hang around cars and friends with car people because I love it.
Yeah, exactly. There's something about getting in a car and flogging it.
Well, there you go. So you've shown me the 1-2 of where I need to start. So within those clubs, that's sort of where you figured out. And how old were you at this time?
So you 16, 17.
16, 17 when you started.
Yep.
Then went off to be a paralegal.
So long story. So I started doing law clerking when I was 14, 15 over summer internships with a couple of firms. Then, I ended up, as soon as I finished school, going into study law and working as a paralegal. So, that was basically, I got to like 18 or 19 and decided I absolutely hated law and went out and started the debt collection business. So that's how that started when I was like 19. So I've been running it for ages. It's kind of... I stopped for a little while when I went to work for a firm, but so I've always done that just so I could afford to go racing.
There's a common story. I've heard that one a couple of times. I started a business to go racing.
That was literally the only reason. So
that's amazing.
But yeah, from there I had the Starlet and I had a few other things. And then I think 2013, I think it was, I got to run in the Australian Swift Series. And I only got to do that from Sean Keeley and Rob Jarvis, the guys that kind of ran it, and Greg. They kind of bent over backwards to help me because it was all coming out of my own pocket. So that was my first chance at national level motorsport. And I did really well, much better than I kind of expected. So I would basically, they let me transport the car to save money. I'd do, with their help, most of the mechanical and whatever. So I'd basically drove around Australia, usually the night before the event, rock up without any sleep and do 3 days and then drive back to get back to work. So yeah, it was an experience, but that was one of the Swift rounds. I think it was Sydney you were at, and I think it was the Photo and Speed Hunters.
Yeah. And you managed to drift that. You managed to drift.
It was turn one, yeah.
Yeah, a front wheel drive Swift, and I got a photo of you like full opposite lock.
It was a fantastic photo. It was so fun. Like that Swift, it was just a production car. It was a heap of fun, and I learnt so much. The guys that were in that category, like Ben Grice, Luke Fraser, Alan Jarvis, they're all exceptional drivers. Like Ben's now up the front of TA2, super competent driver, and getting to his dad, Alan Grice, obviously really famous Australian racing driver, would always work with us, give us guidance, sort of help. And I think that was kind of where I fell into love with door-to-door motorsport, and I've spent the rest of that time trying to go back to do it.
See, that's amazing. I actually didn't realise that the Swift stuff was sort of your first big foray into national motorsport.
Yeah, so I'd done sprints. That was it. And then I got this opportunity to go and do that because I knew Ellen through Boost Cruising.
Good old Boost Cruising.
Boost Cruising. And his dad helped set up the category. And yeah, they invited me out for a test day at Morgan Park and did pretty well there. And then the next year I scrimped, saved, did everything, begged, borrowed, everything short of stealing, I think, to get to the track. And yeah, that was the first foray into it. I'd never done door-to-door. I'd never had any coaching or training. Up until that year, I just didn't have the money to do it. So,
and that's the problem. It is a brutal game and that's the worst part. It just requires lots of money.
Yeah.
There's no other way around it.
There's none. And it's kind of, I suppose, almost in your industry as well, where it's people need capital to be able to kind of grow
absolutely
quickly, or they have to put in a ton of work.
Yes, they're your two options.
Yeah.
Either do it all yourself or throw money at the problem.
Exactly. So yeah, with motorsport, it's even if you do it all yourself, quite often most people fall short. Like
no, it's still not enough because you need so much, and then you need the skill because it's not just you as a driver. It's the team prep, it's the car prep, it's the data, it's the,
And I had to do most of that myself. So like all the setup decisions and changes, I had to learn and do that kind of myself. I had guidance from other people.
Yeah.
So that was kind of where I learned. So I think I've got the ability to compete on a larger scale, but I learnt a lot more being able to set up cars and all that kind of stuff and be able to explain that to engineers. And now basically, it gave me an opportunity to grow and develop that most people didn't.
That's all, and I guess that's the upside, isn't it? That you got thrown in the deep end there, and you're like, oh crap, I've got to do everything.
Yeah, exactly. But like there are guys that still had a little bit of money, like Luke Fraser. He was an incredibly good driver, so he ran the Saloon Series in an AU down in South Australia. Still couldn't make it into the next step, like to get the funding together. And he was exceptional, like just genuinely didn't have a lot of mechanical knowledge, but as a driver just got in the car and could flog it.
And see, the problem with motorsport is it is littered with stories of talented drivers that couldn't get anywhere because the commercial side of motorsport is...
The commercial side is way more brutal than the sporting side.
Oh, absolutely. Like being a good driver comparably is a relatively easy task. Like become a good driver, I get how hard it is. I don't discount that even the slightest. But to commercialise motorsport, that's a mission.
That's the hardest part. And that's where, so Ben Grice was really lucky. His dad's Alan, so he had a lot of connections, but as well, a fantastic driver. But there's so many good drivers. There's so many drivers that could go out and, with a little bit of coaching, compete at a fairly high level. Most people can't do the marketing side of it, particularly if they don't have the money behind them. So, and I think Australia makes that really hard. So, like your Shannon Speed series, that is tied to Stan and obviously Foxtel for the supercars. Anything past the yellow line in the pits, which is like it's only the pit crew, it's the racetrack, you're not allowed to record and post your own social media. So it makes it almost impossible for people coming through that don't have a lot of money, that need to do their own marketing, to go and achieve it. So
it's hard work. And it is, and I've seen that, through my involvement in TCR series, where, the camera cannot be pointing that way.
Yeah.
And so anything we film basically has to be backwards in the pits or back, where the trailers are.
Yep.
Because otherwise you'll get not just in trouble, you'll get fined, and
it's massive fines.
Big problems if you bugger that up.
It's massive fines. I think Ben got in trouble for something like that.
You're like, oh God, do not make those mistakes. And these are all the little things that, again, I don't think people realise, is that the intricacies to be successful in motorsport are just, they're phenomenal.
Yeah. And then no one thinks that you have any ability until you've actually proven it. But the only way you can prove it is if you've got $250,000 to go and run in a category. Like even 86 series now is 150 grand to run for the year.
Wow.
And that's, between that and Aussie cars, that's like your cheapest level. So even TCR now is $300,000 to $350,000 to run.
Oh, absolutely. And, without even blinking. And the funniest thing to my mind is how the Excel series used to be, the cheap entry-level series, but that's gone so crazy now that that's even inexpensive.
We supplied an ECU and dash for someone who was building their own engine dyno, so they could test different combinations of engines and different air intakes for the XL series.
And this is, I had this conversation with somebody recently where they were just talking about how crazy that series has become and how technologically advanced what should be a very basic car.
It's not anymore.
No.
So like they run super shock coilovers, all the engines are sealed, and even then they're built to the finite tolerance. Everyone's messing around with air boxes to try and get the slightest advantage. Like it's just, the guys are spending $100,000 a year to go and run it.
Yeah, to run Excels, and you're like, what?
Yeah, so like you can run around in the middle of the pack with an average car and be a good driver, but you'll never...
No, you won't be anywhere near the sharp end until you tip a ton of money into it. And a lot of people also don't realise, like, the expense in karts, because, the thing is you start in karts and you work your way up, but to work your way up in karts... is phenomenal.
It's almost worse than like your entry level door-to-door stuff.
Because, each engine rebuilds like 10 grand and you got to rebuild them like every 6 minutes. And,
But they'll rock up. They'll rock up the week of the event.
Yeah.
And they'll bring 3 or 4 chassis and then a couple of engine options, and they'll switch them between each chassis during the test days to try and work out what is going to be the quickest for that track. It's like... Your average person can't afford to do that.
No. And this is the thing that I came to see, because I had a mate that did very well in that. And I went and hung out with him just to sort of see how it all happened, because I'd never been to karts before. Yeah. And when I saw the scale of what was going on, I'm like, is this a joke?
Yeah, you go out to Ipswich when there's a meeting on and it's packed. There's so much money.
Oh, my God. Because he was running at a Tyler Greenbury's shop, and, his setup there, I'm like, what?
Tyler's really experienced. He's a good operator. So,
amazing.
Yeah.
And, he's got this, the barrage of kids running there, and they've just got everything. And, it's no different to going and seeing a GT team run. It's just that you could, pick the cars up with 2 people.
and then that's what you've got coming through into door-to-door, like into tin tops, like and open wheelers. Like that's what you've got to try and compete with. So
yeah, it is a monstrous uphill battle to be good.
I think a lot of those kids and the parents haven't worked out how social media and their own brand management can help them actually get to where they want to go. Like that's the real kicker. I think if those guys spent half as much in karting and spent the rest of it with guys like you, you kind of end up in this position where more of them would make it through. It's like Hugh Barter. His emails, I used to get his emails and whatever on LinkedIn. Like, this is so annoying. But he's now over in, I think, Europe doing stuff in Formula 3.
And this is what's crazy. And, you know, I don't often speak about this, but, I've got a background in motorsport marketing, and particularly, so sort of sponsorship and comms and all those sorts of things. And again, I don't tell people about it because it's not a product I can commercialise. I can do it for one person at one time.
Yep.
Is because the level I do it at, that's all I'm capable of. So, because my problem was when people found out I did that, I had a lot of people asking me to help, and I tried to help a few people simultaneously, and it's such an involved process that I actually couldn't do
No,
it.
you can't. Like, you need to invest a lot of time and effort into it. Like, it's one of those things where you almost need someone full-time. It's a brand manager, essentially.
You do. You need a brand manager, and you go and see any of the big teams, and they've got somebody, but you effectively need somebody that just does. You need somebody that loves marketing and loves cars.
Yep.
If that's what you need, and then you need to find a spot in your team to take care of that person, and then just have them travel around with you and do the comms package. Because that was all I did.
Yeah, precisely.
I took photos, I wrote stuff, and I sent it out.
Yep.
And by doing the bare minimum, because that's what I saw it as, I'm like, that's the bare minimum. Tell the story, you know. And I was astonished at how effective that was.
Because none of the teams put anything out. None of the young guys coming through have someone who does that for them. So,
oh, mate. And this was the difference, was I was, you know, and in particular, I started in drifting, so nobody was interested. The national series had just collapsed. We were running a little local series. And you know, my challenge to myself was, what if I put some of this marketing stuff I do into a driver? I wonder what would happen. And that was the experiment.
who was that again?
That was Rob White.
Rob White, yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, that went pretty well.
Yeah.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, he worked his ring out. He invested heavily into it. But between us, you know, we built a car that was backed by Monster Energy, and, you know, we did stuff with Ken Block, and we did stuff overseas, and, you know, won a national title. And when we started, that was his road registered daily, and he was driving it from his house with the plates on it to the event, doing the event, and then driving it home on the roads, because it was a street registered car.
That sounds about right for that period.
And that's what was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But all we did was, you know, we'd always send out, you know, my bare basics was, when we're doing an event, you send out an email and you go, we're going to be here this weekend and we're doing this. And, you know, and then we would go to the event, we would take some photos, we would take some video, and then we would share that after the event. And we'd go, here's the wrap up. And that was all we did, because nobody would give us press back then. Like, you couldn't send out a press release, because they're like, are you joking? You're like a bunch of deros going drifting on the weekend.
They didn't get it.
They did not get it, but I wasn't worried about that, because I had no expertise in motorsport marketing. I was like, well, look, who'd listen to me anyway? So we just did it on social media, because that was 2009, 2010. And that was, and it's hilarious to say this now, but that was back when companies were banning you from being on Facebook. And the companies I was working, you know, with, actually, I think it was even before that. It might have been 2007, 2008, 2009. It was back that far.
I think so. If it was wrong, yeah, it would have been that period.
It was back that far. I'm getting my years confused. You were being blocked from doing it. And I was setting up, so like Motul Australia, I started their Facebook page, and I got in trouble for that. But it ended up being, this is a great story.
That's wild.
It ended up being the benchmark that France used for rolling out all the other pages.
Yep.
Because back then, Facebook didn't have limitations on reach, because they were trying to get people involved. And as somebody that worked in marketing, I'm like, holy crap, I can just put the thing on the thing, and like for $0, it gets seen by like thousands of people. And that was back when you could just post stuff like what TikTok was 2 years ago.
Precisely.
Yeah, you could post something and it would just be in front of people. And I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah, there's such an opportunity there. But there was such an opportunity at that time, and that is entirely gone. You reach now through Facebook, and even TikTok is so...
They're potato, but do you know what's working right now this minute? And this is the reason that I run like my Living the Dream brand, is my favourite thing is just testing and R&D.
Yeah.
And My problem is I now work with like grown-up companies, and they're not quite as comfortable being as loose as I am.
That's the drama I'm having with Hyundai.
Correct. So what I did was I started a dumb brand to do dumb things, and I used that brand as my R&D project. So I can post just idiotic things with no repercussions. And what I can tell you right now is that TikTok is working, but I'll tell you what's working its head off right now at this moment. I don't even know what month we're in. What are we in? July 2023. Facebook and Instagram Reels
Yes.
are pumping. I posted a video the other day about headlights on a pair of Crocs, and across Facebook and Instagram, I'm at 30 million views on that.
That is wild.
Yeah. And then the other one that's pumping is YouTube Shorts. So I made 100 YouTube videos on my account last year, and I think I got 290 subscribers.
So they're trying to push everyone to that portrait short.
And that's what's happening, and that's the opportunity right now. So like if you or anybody listening is trying to do this stuff, Facebook pages are broken. There's no reach.
Just
Zero.
nothing. I've basically given up on that.
Yeah, full potato. I've stopped posting on them. But Reels, as I said, I'm getting like thousands.
Yeah.
Either thousands, tens of thousands, and some that I've done hundreds of thousands and then into the millions. And what YouTube is doing right now is, so I'm uploading a short like every day. So 7 days a week, every platform, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I upload one 7 to 14 second short every day. And I have picked up, since I've started doing this on YouTube back in February or March, when I realised what was happening, because through my testing I was like, hang on, that's weird. Because I'd post a short, I wouldn't get more views on the account overall, but I'd pick up subscribers. Because if you flick through YouTube Shorts, there's a little button down the bottom where people can instantly subscribe to your channel.
I didn't notice that. Okay.
And that is what's happening on Shorts right now at this moment, is I am about to hit 500 subscribers, and I've gone from 290 to 500 in 3 months.
It's such a slow slog on YouTube. But that's impressive.
YouTube is brutal, and a friend of mine, Jason, Jason Morris, if you want to look him up, he's the one who teaches me, because he's now got, I think he's up around 500,000. So he makes content for cinematographers, because he's a shooter himself, and I basically just said to him, I'm like, mate, I'm just copying what you do.
How-to guides and stuff. That's
mate, how-to guides, stuff for, and like it's beautiful content. And he built his audience doing Reels on Instagram, and Reels on Insta are pumping. So Reels on Insta are outperforming TikTok.
So what I've been trying to work out is what I post on TikTok and then on YouTube Shorts or Reels doesn't correlate. Like what it'll do well on TikTok and then not well on YouTube, and then vice versa.
Correct.
So trying to work out what content works on either of them.
And see, there's your problem. There is no pattern.
Brilliant.
Honestly, and because I've been trying to do the same thing. I'm like, oh my God. So what I did, like with the Crocs one, I made another video that was almost identical, but like a different thing. It didn't kick off. And so I cannot replicate the results. No matter what I do, I cannot replicate the experiment. So like as hard as I A/B test these things, it's near impossible.
It just feels like you just post and hope it works. And it's just volume.
And that's the answer. Yeah. It's a crapshoot. So what you need to do, the only thing that works is every day. 7 days a week. Don't think about it. Don't try and analyze it. Don't try and be clever. I spend less than 60 seconds on the whole process. I will spend 7 seconds filming. If I don't like it, I'll film it again, and then I upload. The end. And then I move on. I don't think about it. I don't work too hard on it. I don't study the hashtags. I just send it.
And that's what I've the person that we both know, we're trying to push him to do with Ali's brand and mine is just post.
Yep. And that's the secret. Like right now, today, this moment, that's the secret. That will change in 6 months. But right now, I can promise you from my own R&D brand,
just keep posting,
that's working its head off. And because I know that, I'm now doing that for other clients because I can implement it. And I go, there's no magic, just do the thing. Don't think about it. Don't try and make it funny. Don't try and over-edit it. And that's the other big thing that's collapsed, is there was a moment in time there where, doing beautifully produced things was really valuable. And, I obviously went hard into that and, bought all the fancy gear and all the cameras and all the things. Whereas now I don't use any of that for social. All of it is speed to a solution. So shoot on the phone, post. The end. Like, don't take a DSLR, don't even worry about it. Shoot it on your phone.
That's all it needs to be.
That's all it needs to be.
The guy that shot our stuff, Kevin, down in Sydney recently, that was just on a ZVX10. So it's a $900 camera.
Absolutely.
And he output it the next day. It was
Mate,
brilliant.
you can shoot it on a potato. As long as you are uploading every day, the end.
Yeah.
Isn't that annoying?
It's a tough, that's a really tough thing to do for people.
And that's why, as we were talking about before, it's too hard. It's not, though, because you just say to yourself, same as I need to brush my teeth every day or I need to breathe, X number of times a minute. If you want to be big on social media, I need to post every day. The end.
Yeah, that's the lesson for all of us. Me included, I'm terrible at that.
Correct. Because you overthink it, because you're worried that people are going to judge you. But what you realize, or what you need to come to realize, is that nobody cares.
There is that, yeah.
Nobody cares.
There's that. I think from my end, so like with the deck collection stuff, I think a lot of people find it interesting. But then for me, I've done it for so long, it seems so boring. And then I'd try and overanalyze it by going, how do I kind of interrelate this with my motor racing so I don't completely destroy that? And then I end up doing nothing with it. It's like, well.
And see, there's your problem. And that's why people don't succeed at it, because you have spent so much time convincing yourself that it matters that you do nothing.
Yeah.
And they call it analysis paralysis.
That's exactly it, yeah.
And that is what will defeat most people in their lifetimes. Whereas I have realised, and I've actually done this on purpose now, if you go to my LinkedIn, it's me wearing, I'm literally in I think I'm in Crocs and socks, and I've got my my hat on, with the flap at the back.
Yes.
And I think I've got a pair of Pit Vipers on as well. And I'm on my son's scooter, doing a little one-wheel kick as my LinkedIn profile picture, because I did it as an experiment to go, I don't think any of this matters. And I'm still getting spam messages on there going, hi, do you want to have a meeting with my CEO? And I'm like, nobody looks at this.
None of it matters.
All of this is so irrelevant. We put so much work into curating our brand. It doesn't matter.
No.
And not only does it not matter, it doesn't work.
Everyone tries so hard to try and produce stuff that's beautiful and that doesn't offend anyone, and no one ends up putting anything out.
Yes.
And people don't really look at it. They're just flicking through the reels.
They flick past it. And people think so much, and look, it's part of just being human, is that we're so worried about putting ourselves out there and about being judged and people having a go at us and tall poppy and all the things that happen. But people are so tied up in their own shit that they don't even realise. They don't
no one remembers.
No, they don't care what you're up to.
You've got a small circle of friends around you that will maybe take notice of it, but
even they don't.
Else, yeah.
My favourite part is I run into friends and I'm like, oh yeah, he was on the podcast, and I'm like, oh, have you listened to it? And they're like, oh no, and I just laugh because I take absolutely no offence. It doesn't worry me at all, because hilariously, most of what I do, I'm sure, isn't really for them, but nobody's paying attention.
No.
They notice, they observe, but nobody's paying more, the way that you look at it and the way that you analyse your own stuff.
They'll notice the brand, they might notice the person. It's more just subliminal marketing almost.
Correct.
It's just getting it out there and people seeing it rather than it being correct a lot of the time, which for me is really hard. I hate things not being correct.
And see, that was my 101 back with motorsport marketing. It wasn't that it, you still try and make sure that it's spelt properly and, that it's not, you try not to be rude. But the consistency was the only thing that mattered, because I saw, I had the opportunity to work on the other side in sponsorship where I was, responsible for giving out sponsorship money. And I would get, I reckon, 30 proposals a week. And I would look at all this crap and the stuff that they were sending through. And then the first thing I would do is I would Google the person. And I'm like, have you got a decent Facebook profile? Have you got a website? Do you post regularly? And 9.75 times out of 10, they didn't. They didn't tick any of those boxes.
I've seen so many of the profiles. I think this is one of the biggest mistakes, particularly young kids coming through or the parents make. They offer a package and it's going to be $40,000, $50,000 on the side of the car, and you get one or two posts a week or a month or whatever it is. That doesn't work.
No.
The companies aren't going to spend 50 grand because you got their sticker on the side of the car. There is no value in that, particularly in Australia.
$0 value.
You have to have some sort of social media reach, and you have to have some sort of personality, and you need to build a relationship with these brands. They're not just going to give you 50 grand for the sake of it.
Absolutely not. And this is something that, you know, both you and I know from experience, is that if you would like a company to invest in your racing, and this is something that I say from absolute position of experience, they are not investing in the race car, they are not investing in the race team, they are investing in you.
Precisely.
The end.
Yep.
And here's another crazy one for you, if you have even a passing interest in sponsorship or motorsport sponsorship. They only invest in you because they believe in you.
Yes.
The end.
Yep.
They like you, and they think that you're a good human, and they think that what you're doing is good, and then they also think that you won't embarrass them and you won't embarrass their company.
That's more, that's a lot of it, because a lot of the times if they're actually doing it for a business reason, it's not because they want to see their sticker on the side of the car. It's because they want you to be able to come along to a corporate day and take out customers or staff for a ride or show up to whatever. It is really just investing in you.
Absolutely, it's just investing in you, because even the corporate ride days have no value. Because do you know how hard it is to get people out for those sort of things? It's literally just that they go, you know, I like you, Andrew Price, I'd like to see you do well. You know, I'm in a position where I can help you, and, you know, you go get them, Tiger.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm confident you won't do me wrong because I've seen what you do, and I know that you'll be consistent because I've seen what you do.
A lot of the times they want to feel like they're a team owner as
absolutely.
well. Like they want to be able to come along to the events and
hang walk out into the pit lane and go, "G'day, boys!" You know,
Exactly.
People love that. Like they love being part of that. It's why companies sponsor, and this is hilarious, and this is my favourite thing. It's why people sponsor, you know, the Australian cricket team, because they probably had fantasies of being, you know, wearing the baggy green. But they're a shit-house cricketer.
They wanted to be in the dressing rooms, and now they can do it by getting their names on the kit.
You can buy your way in.
Yep.
And so when you reach a level of success, you just buy your way in.
Exactly. And they still get to enjoy it. They still get the
Absolutely.
experience. They might run for the car or drive, whatever.
Oh,
and
it's massive. And you get to tell all your friends. And
Exactly.
you get to see your stuff on telly. And you go, oh, yeah, that's just casually. That's us. And this is, again, something that I don't think people realise, because they haven't been through the ringer of this stuff and understood that there's so much more to it, and it's far less about the commercial decision and far more about a human decision, a friendship decision, a trust decision.
Precisely. Sending an email to the marketing team isn't going to work.
Nah.
You have to build a relationship. You have to be out at the track with the people, have to be helping them. You have to, if there's an event on, go and spend time with them. If you've got a marketing event or a networking event, going along to the networking event and talking to people, there's so much more to it. It's the traditional, I'm going to post some photos on Facebook and put some stickers on the car is just not it. And it hasn't been for a long time.
Absolutely. And the other thing you got to do is you got to do that for free. And you got to do it for free for a long time before anybody will give you money. And I think that's something else where people fall over.
You have to give back, or have to give them more than what you're asking from them.
Guaranteed. And you have to have delivered it before they give you $1. Whereas I hear people going, oh, yeah, when I get some money, then I'll do this. And I'm like, okay, there's your problem. That's your problem. That is 100% your problem. If you want this to work, the same as when you start a business, you have to spend your own money and your own time.
When I started the Swift series, I tried a sponsorship proposal like that, and it got me nowhere. There was a little bit of support from it, but nothing that would get you through a season. What actually helped get me through the second season was friend Sally introduced me to Easy Skin, and they got me, basically I helped them with their marketing within Australia. They then took me over to Malaysia for a test in the Asia Pacific 86 series and lined me up for a drive in the Asia GT3 series. Unfortunately, the 86 series collapsed, and I kind of came back with my tail between my legs, because when the 86 series collapsed, the deal collapsed for the Asia GT3 series. But that was all networking. It had nothing to do with any of the sponsorship proposals. They're just kind of they're not a waste of money. there is a value in them, but the way that people do them is a waste of money.
Correct. They won't get you the deal. They will help secure the deal when the deal's basically already done.
Precisely. Or even just as an introduction, like you've
Absolutely.
met them 1 or 2 times and you're like, hey guys, this is what I do. This is who I am. You don't need to have in, these are my $50,000 packages or my 10 or 20 or whatever. You're not going to get that. You're going to get it from having a conversation with them and finding out what you can do for them. So I haven't done a sponsorship proposal since then. And now we've potentially got a deal with Cool Drive to do some of their marketing and work with them on some stuff. And that's still being sort of sorted out. So hopefully I haven't said too much. And that's just been through relationships that I've built.
Absolutely. And, they do incredible things. So, and I certainly hope that they see the value in what you guys do, because I see the value in what you guys do, which is literally why I've got you here today. Because I thought how good to be able to share, your story where you have just literally, pushed number 2s uphill until you finally figured it out.
It's been really bad. I've made some terrible decisions with people I've kind of decided to work with, and then just, all a long story, but we're getting there. Like it's always, you can't quit.
No.
Like you just have to keep going, and look, it might never amount to anything, but it's better than doing nothing your entire life or quitting every single time something ends up being too difficult.
Well, mate, you get a little bit further, and that's the thing that I've come to appreciate is if you just keep trying, it might not go exactly where you want or where you imagined it would go, but if you keep trying, it actually ends up in a pretty good place.
Precisely. It's the thing that we have going on with Hyundai at the moment. It's nothing official. I'm not an ambassador or anything along those lines, and there's no specific conversations about that yet. But 2 years or 3 or 4 years ago, we bought Ellie's i30N and we started going to events, and we just spent time with the people that are involved. And I never, as a kid, dreamed of having a Hyundai. It was the exact opposite.
Well, particularly in the 90s and 00s, they didn't really have that. Mate, it was cheap and cheerful.
Precisely. And we got to hang out with Michelle and Guido, Jeff, Fear, a whole heap of the other people that are involved, and Hyundai Global. And we just love the brand and what they're doing. The car's brilliant. And it's kind of helped us build a relationship with them. And they still need convincing. We still haven't done that. But now that we've got the fastback, we're kind of going, hey, this is what we can do. Let's try and think of some ideas of what we can do to work together and how we can kind of make that happen.
Because take me back with when you bought that that first performance Hyundai. I remember this because I remember you bought it and then you took it straight out to the track.
Yes.
If I recall correctly.
That was the best torture test for a car you could possibly imagine. So that was December 2019, I think, when COVID just started, because we had all the issues, or 2020, whatever it was. We bought the car, put a set of tyres and wheels on it, and went out and did 100 laps at Queensland Raceway. And it was almost 40 degrees that day. It was cooking.
Revolting. Yeah.
And we ended up just doing lap after lap after lap, and the car loved it.
Yeah, because I remember you posting your times, and I remember looking at that going, that's properly moving. Like for a factory delivered road car, I'm like, that's not mucking around.
Yeah, it was a stock car with tyres on it, and it did a 60.9 on QR Sprint. Ellie's name is on it.
That's mad.
But even Ellie did like a 61.9 or something.
Wow.
That was one of her first track days.
Wow.
So she did incredibly well. And that was kind of what spurred on her interest. So yeah, that's her own story to tell. But but even like more impressively, like that was the first generation. And now the next generation is even quicker. We took a stock i30 sedan in and did a 59.9 on the factory tyres.
Holy crap.
Which, like, that's ridiculous.
That's mayhem for a factory car.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like it was quicker than the GR Yaris, similar time to the Rally. We got it down to a 57.9 with just a set of tyres and a JB4 and a mid-pipe. At Queensland Raceway, that's 4 or 5 years ago, anything under a 60-second lap time was kind of considered
Oh, that was
seriously quick. Yeah.
proper fast.
And now you're kind of getting production cars that do that.
Which is, yeah, and that is wild. And what I've seen Hyundai do in these last few years has been very impressive, because I also remember when they built, am I getting this right? You'll have to help me with my memory here so I don't get this wrong. But they had like a people mover. And
Yes.
didn't they do something
The drift
hilarious?
bus.
Yeah, with that.
Yes. So that had the Kia Stinger engine in
That's
it.
gangster.
Yeah.
Like,
That was a
hilarious.
seriously cool build. So Jeff Fear was one of the people involved in building that.
Yeah, right.
So Jeff is one of their like senior techs or engineers. Massive. He ran Triple S Auto Dismantling, I think it was. You probably would have seen them in like Fast 4 mags.
Yeah, okay.
Advertising. So he was like one of the early ones to bring in all like the front cuts and everything down in Sydney. Ran improved production, all that kind of stuff. So really knowledgeable motorsport guy, and he's the guy that's kind of helped.
Yeah, right.
Done a lot of the technical as far as Australia goes for end performance. So he goes to the events and talks to everyone, and yeah, like he helped develop the drift bus, and that was
Hilarious.
That was mega. That was such a
so
cool
good
car.
because Hyundai, because I owned I didn't own it, my wife bought it. When we were whippersnappers, we had a Hyundai Accent, and I think it was a 2002, and I had that vehicle right up until 2015. That was still my primary form of transport, because it was cheap and it was good.
Now they're still, as performance brand, they're still cheap and they're still good. It's still 10, 15 grand under anything else.
But they've gone to a whole new place, because that car, again, that was a wonderful car, and I was actually the only reason I was happy to keep driving it. But my wife was pregnant with our son, and she's like, "Look, no offense, but she said, can we get something slightly bigger? And I don't want, put the seat forward and all that, and trying to get a baby in and out of the back." And I'm like, "Look, fair enough." So we had to let that one go. But I'd always thought of them as, a reasonably sensible, fuel efficient car. And then they started doing this end performance stuff. And I'm like, holy crap. Like, they started making like really cool cars.
So they did they brought Albert in, and they did a massive push to employ German engineers.
Right.
So they're all over in Korea. Like, it was a huge push. They got so many people in from it. But like the engineering of the cars is brilliant. So the chassis, it's not the quickest. It is slightly heavy compared to like your Megans and a few of the lighter hot hatches. But as a package, as a driver's car, you can get it to oversteer on entry. Brakes are phenomenal stock. Like, you don't need to do anything to them, and it'll cop abuse all day. And you can see that engineering from Albert and the rest of the team over there, where it's just good fun. You don't have to modify it, but if you do want to modify it, it'll still cop all the abuse as well. So like our i20N has done, I think it's 12 track days now since we purchased it. So it's done Winton, Sydney Motorsport Park, Pheasantwood, Wodonga Motorsport Centre, Queensland Raceway, and Lakeside. And it's done 77,000 Ks in just over 12,000 kilometres.
Wow.
It's been to Cooktown, it's been to Mount Isa, it's been to Corumba, like as far north as you can go. And we haven't had a single issue with it.
And it's just been punished. Well, that was always the thing with the Accent. And that was why, and look, I'll be honest, towards the end of its days, I didn't treat it with the love it deserved. But that became part of the joke for me, was I could just pour good oil on top of bad oil, and mate, it never skipped a beat. And I'm like, whatever they're building these engines out of, there's something good going on here, because this is living on a diet of pure abuse, and it just never ever skipped a beat. I couldn't break it, and let me assure you, I was trying.
Yeah,
okay.
Everyone does. Like everyone tried to abuse them. No one back in the 90s and early 2000s, people bought them because they were cheap.
Yeah.
People who buy them because they're cheap generally don't look after them, so they need to be reliable.
And unbelievable, I can tell you from personal experience of doing horrible things to that car. And I just kept laughing. I'm like, how is this still working? Because you do this to any other car and they're like,
this isn't good.
So
they've kind of filled that spot where Honda was.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Because all the hot hatches got really expensive was the thing that I noticed. Like, WRX was the people's car, and then that went to the moon. Like and the Evos and all those the performance segment stuff all ended up north of 40 grand, and there was no sort of entry level performance.
No, that disappeared really quickly.
That went away. And I've noticed, and again, I don't even know the price points. I'm not as educated on this as you are, but like bang for buck, they said, yeah.
No, there's nothing. So like you can, an i20N you can pick up for sort of high 30s, low 40s. When it came out, it was 36 plus on roads or something like that. The Fiesta's gone. That's no more. So you haven't really got a competitor there. There's the Polo GTI, much more expensive, much heavier, more luxury. It doesn't kind of do the same thing.
No.
Then going up from there, like your Golfs and your Golf R is 85, 90 grand.
Yeah, they're not a cheap car.
Like your only real competitor is the Civic Type R, which is still I think mid 70s.
Wow.
And like your i30N sedan or hatch, you can kind of get for between low 50s to mid 60s for an upper spec,
a fully spec'd out one. But so your i20 was the one that did, what did it do around QR?
It's done a mid 57 now.
Mid 57.
But not on, that was not a Natsoft. That was just a private day.
Yeah.
But it's done a 5809 on Natsoft for anyone who wants to double check. But yeah.
That's bonkers.
Yeah, like we're still at the stage where no one's cracked the ECU. So we only make 15, 20 kilowatt more than it does.
Wow.
Stock. So that's all from coilovers, tyres. Yeah.
And they're just good pedaling.
Yeah. Yeah. It did a 60.9 stock. Or like the prototype did a 60.9 stock. I think we did like a 61.2 or a 61.3 when it was bone stock.
Far out. And you got to talk to me about like some of the fabrication stuff that's going on, because you guys, you can't.
Mini? Yep.
Well, mate, not just that, but you've even been mucking around with the weights and the batteries and all the things. Like you've been looking at this analytically and going, how do we make more fast?
So when I look at a car and I want to modify it, for me, it's always a driving experience. So like I love looking at people that have slam cars and absolutely love them, just not my kind of thing. So I always look at, okay, so if you remove unsprung rotating mass, every kilo you remove from there is effectively like removing 7 kilos from the rest of the car. So as soon as we got the car, SSRs went on, then we went to the WEDs, which was like a 5 kilo saving on each wheel and tire. So it's like pulling 100 and something kilos out of the rest of the car. Lithium battery, it doesn't affect the livability of the car. So rather than you pull the rear seats out and whatever, you'll save 20, 30 kilos. Replace the battery, we go to a 2.5 kilo lithium, and you can't tell. You don't know other than it just being lighter across the front axle. So like all of these little things, we try and do it where it doesn't affect how the car drives day to day, but just makes it nicer, makes it a little bit faster, a little bit more enjoyable. So yeah, everything's kind of picked as what can we do that will give the best bang for buck and also make this car easy to live with daily. And I think we kind of achieved that. Like Dan is the guy that owns the Fastback now. He has a sedan as well. His car, as we said before, I think they did a 57.9 with just the battery kit, wheels, tires, no suspension mods at all. So I think once we go coilovers on that, that's probably, I think realistically we can get that into a 56 around QR Sprint, which is
another second into it.
Yeah, exactly. Like the factory suspension from them is really good, but it is a mass-produced item. So
absolutely, and it's not designed for pure performance because you have to find a compromise between livability.
Exactly. So they've got the adaptive dampers in there, which do a reasonably good job of it. But going to a proper coilover.
Yeah. Well, if you just want to go full bore and make it go as fast as possible, because race car.
So we sell and supply Shockworks. It's what we always have. And honestly, they're more comfortable. So their street spec is more comfortable than stock, and it's faster. So if you go full bore as well, it's more uncomfortable. But if you want something that has better body control, still is comfortable, their street spec is awesome.
Then you go that way.
So, yeah, there's it's just a good brand where like there's no issues with engine reliability. You can throw on an oil cooler and it won't get above 100, 110. You can just go out and lap and lap and lap. So,
And see, I've just realised that before we go too far into modifying these cars, you should probably also tell me about your involvement in World Time Attack, because that's sort of where all these paths lead, is the quest for one perfect lap. And you've done that a couple of times with a couple of cars.
yes. Okay.
So take me back to the first time you went, I'm going to go and have a crack at World Time Attack.
So the first time I actually did it, I was trying to build an open class car, and a workshop, actually someone we know, a shop, performance shop, didn't supply some of the parts we needed in time. So we missed that year. The next year, we weren't actually planning on entering. We had a friend that pulled out, and we had the Audi sitting there. So we took that down, and that was Ben Keeley from Keeley Motorsport put that together. I think he built it in like 2 or 3 weeks. It was something ridiculous. It had a welded front diff, so it was a nightmare to drive. Another suspension supply didn't supply the coilover kit that we were supposed to have. So a few days before, we had to go and find another just cheap Taiwanese kit that wasn't very good. We went down there and did a 147, and it had issues, but we went down there. We did okay. Like we came mid-pack or whatever it was. And Ben did an awesome job on that. And then we pulled that apart to rebuild it. Had to build an engine, went bigger turbo, the works. We did it properly. Got it ready. We didn't get it ready until just before World Time Attack. Got it dynoed. Everything was going well. Just nice, safe tune. It was making about 400 wheel horsepower and weighed a ton. Drove it off the dyno. Got to literally the front door of Godzilla Motorsport, and it blew the gearbox up. The day we were supposed to leave.
Yay, motor racing.
Yeah. So we missed out that year. Then
Tears.
Yeah, exactly. So that was kind of an expensive lesson. Then that hurt a little bit. And it's ready to go back together. Basically, straight after that happened, COVID kind of hit.
Yeah, kicked in.
So basically, I lost all of my income overnight. So Ellie was building her E30, and then we had the entry in already, so we took that down for the next year. That was
because you had the cat down the side of it or something? What was
yes,
that?
Nyan Cat.
Nyan Cat on the side of that, which I thought was terrific.
It was I was trying to push Ellie to go dick butt on Rainbow Road.
And that was your compromise?
Yeah, I got overruled on that one, unfortunately. I've still got the design. So I designed it initially to go on the Swift.
Classic.
But it's hilarious. I'll pull that out and show you later.
Yeah, save that one.
That was like a stock car. That was a stock E30 with like an M50 B25 in it. Went down, did okay. Next year, this was one of the best connections I've ever made, I started talking to Andrew Brilliant. So he runs AMB Aero, which they built or designed under Suzuki's car, TRB03, the HKS car. He's done a whole heap of stuff from Formula One, Le Mans, everything. Like he's one of those people where I've been really fortunate. Like I've met some incredible people, and he ranks up there, just fountain of knowledge. So we built a splitter kit and rear wing and went to an M54 B30. It was still basically a stock E30. Like it had no rear interior, but it just had coilovers, factory dash, a wrecker engine that we bought for $400. We bought a whole car for $1,400, and by the time we parted out the rest of it, I think it cost us $400. And yeah, that year we went down and did like a 146 or something, and it was hilarious. That car was so slow in a straight line, but we were doing 180, 185 through turn one, and it's kind of impressive. And then, that was basically it until once again we tried getting the Audi ready for last year's World Time Attack, and it wasn't going to happen. Once again, choosing the people you work with. So made the call and borrowed, and this was kind of how a lot of the Hyundai stuff kind of started. We borrowed Sheepy's i30N, which I think we did a 145, and I messed up the lap. We could have gone a 144, which was what we were trying to do. It didn't have a roll cage in it, so we were trying to get kicked off. So, yeah, that was basically it. Now this year, through the Hyundai M Performance Owners Group, we met Daniel. Daniel's become an incredibly awesome friend. He's the guy that purchased the Fastback and is helping to kind of make all of this happen. We're going to be running that this year. So from when we got it, it was basically, and it still is almost it's still got the full dash. It's still factory airbox, factory intercooler, all that kind of stuff. The only things we've done are suspension, wider wheels and tires, and a flash tune. That's it.
That's it. But see, that's amazing. That, having built so many complex cars and so many crazy things and so many, because the problem, somebody else said to me this the other day, MDS Fab, he was saying, mate, once you go over 450, he's like, everything breaks. Whereas if you keep it,
That was the Audi. It was welded diff. That engine had a G30 770 on it. So it's got the capability of making 550, 600 wheel horsepower. It just breaks stuff.
And that was his comment. Because I said to him about my new Barra, I'm like, how do we make it go more power? And he's like, here's my advice, don't.
Yep.
He said, don't.
The World Time Attack regs as well really reward lightweight as well. So if you can get something that's for 90% of the people that are competing, if they can pick a chassis that is light, an EG, EK, DC2 Integra, whatever. And then just make moderate power. If you make 350 wheel horsepower, you'll have something that's fairly competitive in club sprint.
And super reliable.
Yeah, exactly.
Because once you go north of that 450, then you break all the things all the time. Yep. And if you would like to know more, ask Andrew Price about all the things he's broken.
A lot of things.
Because I remember that Audi. That Audi was hilarious. And that did have a big spoolie boy.
Yeah, it's massive. It was quite responsive. It's just we blew the gearbox up. And we knew it was going to happen eventually. We were just hoping we could get through.
Not that fast.
Yeah, not that fast.
Oh, God. Right.
So it's got a new built box and everything. Yeah. It's ready to go together. It's just... I made the decision to focus on, so my friend runs Elite Motorsport Development. I help manage with him. I made the call to help him concentrate and focus on that stuff. So I kind of put that car to the side, not because I don't want to drive it. I would love to more than anything, and the stuff with Hyundai, I prefer to choose where I focus my energy.
Absolutely. One project at a time. And, the fact that they're at least enjoying and entertaining all these things and, broadly supportive of the wider concepts, then, I think that's bloody wonderful. And, why wouldn't you do that? Because, they're doing exciting things.
Yeah, they are. And that's I wouldn't have tried to work with them if I didn't think there was an opportunity. And it's still not. It's still the work in progress. But as I said before, the team's awesome.
Absolutely.
They've got a great bunch of people. They're all... most of them have a experience in rallying or motorsport somewhere along the line.
So they dig it. And
they dig it.
And that's what you want. You want to be working with people that go, that's ridiculous, but that's also really cool.
Exactly. And they've seen that now with the Fastback. They're like, this is awesome. So it's kind of starting to gain traction, and now they're trying to make stuff happen behind the scenes so we can do more.
Which is so cool, because that Fastback, so that one that you're running this year, and I think, look, we briefly mentioned at the start, but let's go a little bit deeper into that one. What's the story behind that car?
So they built it 2018-19 to run at World Time Attack. It was literally, they had a trade stand there, so they're like, we need to do something. Then I think Tim Rogers ended up driving it at the event. Did okay. It did a 148. It was stock. It literally, I think it made 196 kilowatt at the wheels. It had the aero on it, but it was not anything out there. So consider it just a stock i30N that had some aero on it. That was kind of, since then they've just run it at N Festival and various other events and basically just promotional, and they kind of parked it up, and it was at the end of its life cycle. So it came in, it's got the VIN number on it is N Performance 002. So the hatch came in first, and then the Fastback came in, and that was the second N into Australia. That's the development car. So anyway, what happens at the end of that time is they come in without having to pay tax or duties on them. at the end of that time, they either have to sell them, pay the tax, or crush it. So we purchased the car, or we started the negotiations with them in December, I think it was, at N Festival down at South Australia. And it took until, I think, March or April to kind of get it across the line. But yeah, like a week after we were due to pick it up, it was still booked in for crushing. So
yikes.
Yeah, it was a real
Your
close
car
call.
has been crushed into a cube.
Yep.
Please remove your cube.
Yeah, precisely. So I don't think they kind of figured the deal would go ahead or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Because there's a lot of people that talk.
Yeah, there is a lot of people that talk. And so until you pay the bills, it's not real. Actually, Liam said that to me the other day. He said, don't believe anything. It's not real until you're driving down pit lane and tightening your belts.
Yes, exactly.
He said that's the moment that it's real.
Exactly. I've met heaps, particularly when I was younger, where people would be like, oh, yeah, we'll get you a drive or whatever. And it just never happens. Until you're in the seat, it just doesn't mean anything.
That's it. When you're tightening your belts, then you know it's real. And how cool to own like that VIN number. I mean, that's so special to have that in the shed.
He's had the entire N range and also a lot of the Kia range and the Genesis range. So he's just an absolute nut when it comes to Hyundai, Genesis, Kia stuff. So like that was he tried buying the drift bus as well, apparently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, apparently.
Legend.
Basically he's got that as a collector's item. So I've got to try and not crash it.
Oh, mate. Well, the VIN number's still all right, as long as you've still got the VIN.
Yeah.
Just keep that plate.
Yeah. Just make sure that's okay.
Make sure the plate's okay. And
make sure the aero and everything else can just be moved over to another chassis.
Yeah, you're like, should be right. But how lovely to take that car and that chassis, like it's done that work, and now to be able to develop that further.
It's an incredible
honour. Race program. Yeah. That's very special. It
is an incredible sort of... Dan was like, look, I like your dream. I like your vision with what you want to do. Go and do it. And this is the budget that we've got to work with. And it's kind of gone better than any of us kind of expected. So, it's just an incredible honour. I'm kind of... Dan, every single time we go down and do an event with him, is always so thankful. Pays for all the food and accommodation, travel. And it's like, I don't try and give him stuff back. And it's like, because you're giving me this massive opportunity. It's incredibly humbling that he's like, yes, I trust you to go and do this. And then we set goals. And our goal was kind of to do like a 142, 141, maybe a 140. That was kind of where we were expecting to go for World Time Attack. Once we did, like this was next year's plan. Because this year we were like, let's just see what we've got and try and put it together. And we're already at the 141. We still haven't fitted the Motec. We haven't fitted the bigger turbo. So we get that all done this year and finish off the rest of the aero. I think we've got a car that can do a 137 or a 138.
Yeah, wow.
Realistically. Which up until JDM Yard absolutely destroyed everything. They went out and did a 135, I think, in practice. That would be enough to be the quickest front-wheel driving club sprint.
That's pointy end.
Yeah, so like Elusive was kind of the goal, the Elusive Integra. But yeah, to be involved in the project and have the responsibility of kind of managing EMD and working with Dan and trying to pick up sponsors and everything for it, because it's an expensive game and we want to try and minimize some of those costs. Yeah, it's a lot of responsibility and a fantastic opportunity.
Because you're doing a ton of R&D on these cars is the thing that I notice as an outsider looking in. So do you want to tell me about that? A
lot of the products that we develop at Elite Motorsport get put on either the Fastback or Ellie's i20 or Dan's car even. And with what I do with work debt collection wise, I travel everywhere. So the coilovers that we have on it from Shockworks have done 60,000 kilometres through racetracks and across the toughest roads in Australia. So we just try and torture test absolutely everything. We're not first to market with anything, but what we do bring to market, we always know will work. We're trying to bring everyone, because the Hyundai community is so new. A lot of the people that buy them haven't been involved in cars before. So they haven't got a heap of knowledge. And there's a lot of companies out there that produce products that are just absolute crap. And they kind of push them down and sell them to some of them. So we're trying to develop a product, torture test it and go, this works. We can put our name on it. And we're happy to put our name on it. So what we do with Elite Motorsport and Semi-Pro, basically I won't sell something to someone unless I'm happy to use it or I have used it myself. It's just, that's it.
It's good philosophy.
Yeah. Yeah, basically. There's too many people that just try and sell based on what's the biggest profit margin. And I can't do that myself.
And do you know the one that I have a personal gripe on is if you spend enough time on the internet and you try and find out what product to put in your own vehicle, I find that people are just parroting other people's information.
Yes. You're trying to get to the semi-pro thing that I'm trying to set up. So, look, from all the mistakes that I've made, from all the things that I've learnt, from all the mistakes I've seen friends make, I set up Semi-Pro Motorsport as a way. I've tried a whole heap of things. Like I tried Inside Time Attack and a few other things. I'm like, none of this kind of vibes. Minnie and I, who was our fabricator, we were spitballing ideas and we're like, Semi-Pro Motorsport, it's a funny name. It was just a piss take. So anyway, we set it up and I'm like, actually, this could be a really good opportunity to teach people. So what we want to do is provide free information about products, tuning, suspension, brakes, the works, whatever you can do to modify a car. Kind of like a horsepower academy, like HP Academy do an incredible job, but it's very in-depth. It's more for people that actually want to learn and go.
It does look very deep.
It is very deep.
The stuff they do.
And it's really expensive if you want to do all the courses. So we want to provide something that's a bit more fun, easier to get into, easier to understand.
Better for middle-aged guys starting out in motorsport for the first time.
Middle-aged guys starting in motorsport, 17-year-olds starting to modify their first cars, all those things where people get misguided. So it's still a running concept about how we're going to do it. I've written a heap, absolutely tons of articles about just technical knowledge stuff, braking systems, what type of suspension, McPherson strut, AA arm, motion ratios, like a whole heap of stuff that hearing it for the first time probably sounds a little bit convoluted, but I'm trying to break it down into being really simple so then people can understand, oh, okay, this is how we've got this spring rate and this coilover. Or like my car weighs, say your car weighs 1,400 kilos and we've got 50 kilos, 50% split front and rear, and the rear uses an inboard spring. The further away the spring is from the wheel and tyre, that changes your motion ratio, which changes your effective spring rate. So if it's, say it's a 0.6, 1-to-1 would be in line with the wheel or the axis of it. 0.6 would be 60%. So 10 kilo spring in the rear would actually only be working like a 6 kilo spring. That's your effective spring rate. So it's just all these sorts of things that we want to try and break down, try and make it interesting, not make it.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm today years old hearing that one for the first time.
Yeah. But like that's a lot of things. There's a heap of coilovers on the market where people are just like, it's got a generic spring rate. They have no clue why it's in there.
Nah. I wouldn't know. I'm like,
Exactly.
I'm like, can you give me more low?
Exactly.
That's sort of what I'm looking for.
Yep.
Now, I'll tell you what, if I don't stop for a second, I'm going to probably wet my pants.
I'm not too far off that as well.
Oh, phew, and we're back.
Yep.
We both needed the pit stop, it turns out. The giant coffee that I had and then the bottle of water, and he was smashing a smoothie or something on the way in.
Smoothie, water.
Oh, mate.
Trying to be healthy.
Gets you every time. Now, what we're talking about, my brain fell apart.
Semi-Pro Motorsport.
All right, so Semi-Pro Motorsport.
So,
your brand.
It's basically educational. We will sell a little bit of product. It's product that we use and have tested. Sorry, I forgot to turn my phone off.
Come on.
Turned it on to check messages for work.
You've got to buy a carton of beers if you do that. That's the rule.
So, yeah, basically educational, sell product that I've tested or know, like, use, Project Mu, all that kind of stuff. And then coverage of events, things along those lines. And we want to create an app, essentially, I've taken a huge interest in some of the AI technology. And I think it's an amazing opportunity where people can go out to the track. They can measure their tire pressures, like input what tire they're using, sizes, and give them feedback on what their tire pressure should be. And then also something that expands on what the Garmin Catalyst is doing. A bit more, the Garmin works pretty well, but it's obviously like a first generation of what it's trying to do. So sometimes it can be a bit laggy with input data, and it's just trying to coach you off what you're doing rather than based off what other people have done in similar vehicles. So there's that kind of shortcoming where it's kind of coach you off what you've done rather than off what better people have done. So that's something that we want to try and progress down, but it's really early stages.
It is a really wonderful vision though, like getting stuff that you have tested, because this is a huge personal beef, because I have a little bit of knowledge,
yes,
but not a great deal, and absolutely not in depth, and so I sort of have to follow guidance, and I'll go and ask in a forum or something, I say forum and I mean like Facebook community, of what do people recommend when it comes to X, Y, Z, and the most recent one of this where I was looking at a turbo for my Land Cruiser, because it's a Toyota CT26, and I just asked the question, and I'm like, what are people running? And there's basically one brand that everybody parrots, and that's the only answer you get.
Yeah,
nobody's tested anything else. Nobody's trying anything.
They won't test anything else, and even if they have purchased the product and they've had issues with it or it hasn't been perfect, quite often they won't mention it, because they're afraid of other people sort of lashing out at them about it or getting protective. Like, I worked this out early on. There is no point in attacking anyone's views or trying to correct them. It doesn't do anything. So the only way of trying to correct what you've kind of identified is to teach people. And yeah, like you get in groups where it's just an echo chamber of...
Totally.
They wouldn't have even fitted the turbo.
No.
Their mate's uncle has fitted
Correct.
it. And they're like, oh, everyone else has fitted it on the group. And probably 10% of them have. And
it was a huge frustration for me. And it was why... So I ended up going down... I think I've talked about this before, but I grabbed a Kinagawa.
Yep.
And the reason I went that way was my drift buddies put these on their cars, thrashed the ring out of them, and like they go pretty good.
They work. Yeah, for the application, they work.
And I went, well, that's good enough for me. Let's try it. Like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? The worst thing that's going to happen, it'll explode, and I'll, might be up for a new motor. But I've now done 20 or 25,000 Ks over 2 years with that turbo on it, and like I've got, more power, lower overall boost, and like it works perfect. And it's cheap and good.
It's a turbo, as long as it is the correct size for your application.
And it was spot on. Like, it's a CT26 housing with an uprated internals. And I'm like, well, I'm not a smart man, but like same, but slightly better, because technology's improved,
Yep.
over when the first one was made 30-something, in 1988. So I went from 1988 to, 2020
Precisely.
technology.
Yep.
And like, it's way better. But I could not find a single thing in all the Land Cruiser communities,
because everyone would have gone to whatever they recommend.
Well, that's it, mate. People only use G Turbo. That's the only. So people just parrot G Turbo, and I have no like. I'm sure that they're an extraordinary turbo. They seem like they're very well done and all that sort of stuff. But I struggle with the fact that there's other stuff in the market, and so rather than just parroting,
there is
the one. I'd love to see some more. Like, I always love when, four-wheel drive magazines and stuff get, like, the similar component from every person, because four-wheel drive magazines are, like, the only magazine that still survive.
It really is.
That survive the magazine apocalypse. But, like, they'll get 20 or 30 brands, and they'll go and smash the crap out of everything and go, right, here's what worked, here's why.
We would love to do that, trying to get product off.
Yeah, good luck.
You off suppliers.
See, you buy it yourself. This is the thing I've come to appreciate. Is if you want to test stuff and then you're not beholden to people, because once they are sponsoring you or providing you, then you can't speak freely.
Precisely. You can't. And so it's a big capital outlay. So
Huge.
that's something we'd love to do. So I'd love to set up a tyre test.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the tyre tests that people do really annoy me because, so like a softer sidewall tyre will generally want a little bit more camber in it because it's going to deform more. When this is like the case of the AO52 versus RE71 RS and Nankang CRS, they're all probably fairly similar. But every single test that is done is the car is fixed. There is no changes to it. There's no changes to alignment to kind of suit it. So you're kind of only getting a half story about what the reality is, and then everyone parrots that half story.
Correct.
So
because I put tyres on my other Falcon and they were Salem tyres. And, you know, I know that there's correct, you know, I run Michelin Pilot Sports on my E36 because, you know, I believe in, you know, the right thing for the right application. But for that car, I was like, I just need it to be like cheap and good. And they turned out to be a wonderful tyre. And then I ended up putting them on my trailer as well because, again, it doesn't need to do any hardcore performance. But it frustrates me that it's hard to find honest opinion on variable brands.
People don't have enough knowledge.
No.
And they quite often they will the other big thing that people do is they'll take the experience of so like your Kinagawa turbos and Pulsars. They are really good. Like their quality control is excellent, but they're designed to suit an application. So there was a guy recently that was parroting that the Pulsar turbos are as good as the G series Garretts, and it's like they're not. The Pulsar uses an Inconel wheel, whereas the Garrett uses a MAR-M. And the reason for that is that they spin the turbo that hard that it creates enormous amount of heat. The Garrett can withstand 200 degrees more before it starts having issues with failure. So people have to understand that. If you're building a car where you're only going to throw 15, 20 pound into it, Pulsar's perfect. It works. If you're going to throw 30, 35 pound into it, Pulsar's probably not it.
And that's precisely it, is I wasn't looking for a performance increase. I just wanted a new turbo. And I thought, why buy just a straight Toyota one when I could try something different? Because I run it at a maximum of 12. You know, they're a factory 7, 15, and north is bad.
Yep. You're never going to stress it.
Is generally considered where you start having problems. And so like at 12, it's happy. But I've got more torque at that 12 PSI than I had at, you know, if you push the old one to 15, you weren't even in the same ballpark. Yeah. Whereas now most of the time I'm running like 7 pound and it's just happy as. Yeah, because it's so much more efficient.
Yeah, it's a newer, better compressor design. Yeah. Like it's more efficient. So
whereas if I was going for maximum power, look, I wouldn't do that. I would spend the money and you buy
precisely, but people
the right thing for the right job.
People don't even ask.
No,
they don't ask. Someone will go, "What's the best tire that I can get for my i30?" Like I see it on the Hyundai groups all the time. Or what's the best brake pad? And they'll just recommend the exact same thing without asking questions. And that's where the AI thing I kind of want to use comes into it, where people can sort of provide some information and then that can output it.
Because what do you want to achieve is the first thing. You know, are you going to continue to drive it to the shops, or are you going to do, you know, Motorcana, hill climb, occasional race day? Do you want to try and drift it? Like what
no one asks that question. And then a lot of the times when people do, the person who's made the post, I might do 1 or 2 track days a year, and then maybe it will be more like I'm interested in doing it, and you kind of talk to them more and you find out answers. And it's people on the internet don't do that. They just post what they've used, and they don't know whether it's good or not because they haven't compared it to anything else. They don't know what the other stuff is. So they're just giving their own personal anecdote about what they think is good.
Correct. And this comes back to the thing we were talking about earlier, like how you torture test stuff yourself. And like for me and what I do working in, you know, marketing and advertising, I just test stuff and I test it infinitely because much the same as you, I would never make a suggestion if I haven't spent my own money on it. Because to me, that's very valuable. Because if I wouldn't spend my money on it, why the hell should I ask somebody else to spend their money on it?
Exactly. And if it doesn't work for them, all you're doing is damaging your own name.
Correct. Whereas I know for a fact that by the time I give somebody information, I've been testing it for 6 months.
Exactly.
And there's no doubt in my mind. I'm happy to give people, early access to information, but I will say that I don't know yet. This is what I'm seeing.
It's the problem in so many industries. And a little bit of it is social media, where everyone wants to be first out. So I think you had this conversation, with Rory about the supercar kids, where they will post something and then that's it. Like the same happens with products, and they want to be first out, because if they're first out, their name's first in the market. So you have to try and battle against that. So
whereas I don't want to be first in the market. I want to keep playing the game for a long time.
I want to be best in the market. That's what it comes down to. And we have this issue in the group, in the Hyundai group again. There's a brake pad supplier in there. They just can't get the brake pads right, but people still keep recommending them, and one of the suppliers keeps selling them. I don't publicly shit can the company. I went back to the manufacturer and said, guys, you need to sort this out.
Yeah.
Didn't really get anywhere with it, but there's still suppliers that are happy selling it, and we want to try and educate people on how to avoid that.
Well, that's it. And so what are you testing? What are you pushing in the stopping department?
Project Mu.
There you
go. We supply them through Cool Drive. Brand new, they've literally just landed in the last few weeks for Hyundais.
How good?
It's phenomenal. I've used their stuff for about a decade, so I already knew that it works. Ellie got them in the i20N first off, and she's like, these are amazing. So we've been using Serco beforehand, which is a good pad, not canning it, and one other pad, which is the one we had issues with. Better. Way, way, way better. The first pad that we had issues with literally died in 10 laps on National at Queensland Raceway.
Wow. And what are the Project Mood doing?
They're still going. We don't have issues. There's no... We don't have brake pad fade. We don't have... There's a little bit of dust. They're not a little bit more dust than the Serco and the other pad that we were using.
Because they work.
Because they work. They're designed for the application.
I'm never offended by brake dust if it actually does the stopping. I don't know why brake dust is such a beef for people.
Because people don't want to clean.
Mate, you pay someone to wash your car. You go and see the car wash people and it's done.
Yeah, just coat it and then you'll just wash it off.
Yeah, that should be right.
Yeah, it's the Project Muse work brilliantly, and we're just about to torture test Bremtech rotors. Yeah, so they've just released a 2-piece for the i30M pre-facelift and i20N.
Nice.
So they're going to get absolutely tortured next up, because once again, one of the brake disc suppliers we've been having issues with rotors basically breaking, they've cracked.
And that's a temperature issue or a heat cycling issue or something.
So the way this will probably, people will be able to work it out. They use it's a 2-piece rotor, but it's a fixed 2-piece rotor. So it's an alloy hat then with an iron ring. They expand at different rates.
Yeah, okay.
So people that are using them on track, they're getting them really hot.
Yeah.
They cool and they heat up and cool and expand at different rates, and it cracks. And that's the stuff people aren't.
No. And that's basic metallurgy, if you understand.
Basically. But that company sells that product at a premium. It's close to, their retail price is close to double what our retail price is.
Spicy.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that, again, grinds my gears, is stuff being sold on parroting, not being sold on proof.
Yes, precisely. But even still, that, the customer that we had that used them, because we couldn't get anything else at that time, we gave it to the customer and we don't recommend these, but this is literally all that's available at the moment.
This is what you can have.
So he tested them, and after one track day, they cracked. And his was a proper torture test. He drives hard. But yeah, people then got on to defend it. It's no, that is an issue with the way they design those rotors. They shouldn't be used in that application.
No. Well, that's it. They're not built for it. And that's okay.
But they still market it that it's built for it. That's the frustrating thing.
That's less okay. Because if it can't handle it, then you know, over time, you will eventually have a problem.
They'd have heaps, and people still... This is the bit that kind of amazes me, that people...
will stand up.
So many companies still stand up when the product, or people stand up for the product even when they have issues.
The internet is a very strange place.
That's the bit I don't know how I'm going to get around. So that's the real issue with why I gave up going, hey, no, you shouldn't use that product for this reason, because every single time you will get other people coming in going, no, you're wrong.
And just arguing with you.
Yeah. And most of the time they don't have a clue.
No. Whereas the joy of what you're doing is, and, you know, as you said, even when you were, you know, talking about your Natsoft times, you know, it's proven. Like, it's not, you know, you're not putting it up for debate. You're like, we did this and then we got that result.
Exactly.
Like, there's the stats. And you can believe it or not believe it, but here's what we have done, here's why we've come to that conclusion, then you make your own decision based on that data.
Exactly. We've got the fastest i20N in Australia. We've got the fastest i30N in Australia. The only things that are quicker are the TCR cars.
There you go. That's pretty... But like, that's the thing. That's pretty solid. Yep. And you go, you are welcome to your own opinion, but...
Even then, though, like, that still comes with its own hazards, because there's cars that have competed and won at World Time Attack that are going, this is the best product. It was on the car that won at World Time Attack, but A, it's not what the customer gets. It doesn't mean it's a good product. So it still has to be some education about how it's good and honesty. Like, this is where it comes down to. There's a lot of companies that are like, oh yeah, we use this product on our car, but then if you actually look at the car, it hasn't got that product on it.
And see, that's a hilarious problem across motorsport, where they're sponsored by one company, but you know that they're tipping, in particular, like fluids and things. And I've seen this where they will tip the fluids out and then they'll tip what they actually use into the branded container and just tell porky pies about what the car is running. And, you know, I understand when there's serious money involved, you know, these people are all doing what they need to do, but it's... you know, unethical at best and straight out lying at worst.
Well, I don't mind it so much when it's in motorsport and you're trying to beat your competitors, but when you're selling it to people, that's when I have an issue.
Supporting it or taking the money, like, I don't know, and I struggle with those. And, you know, maybe I'm just old-fashioned and weird, but like that...
I can't do it.
It doesn't sit well with me because I can't, like, mate, I'm not smart enough to be able to keep porky pies in a line, so I would much rather... not tell porky pies, and then I'll never get caught out.
Precisely. You have to be honest with people.
I've got nothing to hide because, like, I just can't.
I think the companies get away with it now because the world is so small but so big. So companies have so much greater reach than they used to have. Whereas 10, 15 years ago, if you wanted parts for your car, you went down to the local shop. If the parts didn't work, you'd lose that customer, and then the business would lose that customer, and that customer would tell their friends. Pretty quickly turns into a bad name for that area. Nowadays, there's 100 million different groups. You can sell globally. You can piss off a customer base and not really have any repercussions from it. You might lose a little bit of sales in the short term, but long term you can just...
yeah, it's just a bump in the road.
Exactly. So there is that real... the internet's an amazing place, but it's also made that education side much more difficult.
It is a debacle, and that's why, you know, that's why I'm so happy to champion people that are doing the work and like doing the R&D and, you know, just putting it out there and then going, look, you do whatever you want to do and you do it the way you want to do, but here's what I've learned, and if that's of interest to you,
that's all you can do.
Wonderful.
That's literally all you can do, is try and put the information out there and go, here, look, do with it what you will. Like, I'm not going to try and push you on the sale. Even when I get customers that are coming to me with, they've got a certain requirement, I will give them quite often, hey, we don't supply this, go and see these guys. This will suit your application better. You've got to be honest, like, in the long run, I think you gain more from that than you do from trying to make the quick sale.
Absolutely. And look, mate, the quick sale is the enemy of success.
Yes. Yes, it is. And like, that's with what you've done. Like, you've worked on this business for, 13 years now?
14 years now, mate.
14. And then, like, you've tested recently what you've done with social media and living the dream. Like, that's awesome. Like, the designs that you guys have come up with and the content is brilliant. And
it's just because, like, all that stuff is... I don't think anyone should buy from me if I can't show you my own examples of why this is what I do. And
yeah, you're not product testing, you're service testing.
correct, because, most of my customers are now, if they sell stuff online, they move to generally Shopify, depending on the scale of the business. And I sort of thought to myself, I'm like, look, this has been happening for a little while. Shopify is the clear market leader. I'm like, I don't have my own Shopify store. And I went, for me, that's not good enough, because, and I say this across cinematography and all the things that we do, like there's no job that I can't do myself, whereas I didn't know Shopify inside out and backwards. I could navigate through it. I was perfectly competent, but I now understand every single intricacy because I spend my own money on it. And
it's a quick way to learn when it's your own money.
I pay the license, I sell the product, I do the transaction. I've had the issue where PayPal wasn't compatible, and it took all my money and gave it back to people. And like I've literally there's no replacement to education. And by education I mean doing the thing.
Yeah. You can read something, something.
Yeah, you can watch the YouTube video, but until you do it, you don't understand. And that was where I thought I had a hole in my knowledge, because, e-commerce has been there for a long time. But over the last 2 years, e-commerce exploded at a rate that nobody could have predicted. The numbers were phenomenal in terms of the number of people that made their first ever online purchase while we were all stuck at home through COVID. The numbers were ridiculous. Like, online retailers that work with us were seeing like a vertical, month on month.
I can only imagine, because no one could go out. They got to spend money somewhere.
Everything was just vertical. And it was in that period of time that I went, okay, this is, because we jumped, in terms of like my industry and what we do, we jumped 5 years in 3 months. Like, because we were nowhere near it. It's like pre-COVID, like online sales were there, but it was sort of third tier in terms of what people were doing.
Australia almost always seems 10 years behind on everything. And as far as online sales go, COVID was kind of like, you've got to catch up.
It was a rocket. And we literally jumped. I was, again, where we came to within 3 months was I'd suspect where we would have got to in 2025 in terms of the exponential growth. There's no doubt in my mind that we did 5 years in 3 months in terms of the uptake.
Yeah.
And removing people's fear, because people were still, they still are, they're terrified that, the internet will take their money and they'll clean their bank account out and all this sort of stuff. But people did their first online grocery shop and they had their stuff delivered and they were like, oh my God, how good's this?
It's just so convenient.
And then Amazon Prime rolled out as well in that time, and people were like, holy crap, I can order something today and have it tomorrow. Like, it just went exponential.
At the time it was a necessity because you couldn't go out.
You couldn't leave.
But now everyone's lives are so busy trying to catch up from COVID that they don't have time to go and do this stuff. And
it opened the gates for that. Which is why then, for my own knowledge, along with all the advertising stuff, I wanted to become like a genuine expert on, product development, sales and shipping and international sales. And because, I provide guidance around these things, but I only provide guidance off the back of data that where other people had spent the money on that stuff because it was their product. And I went, oh, well, time to put my big boy pants on and
do it yourself.
And do it myself. And it has been a real joy, that process of learning all these things.
It's physical. You see your own child kind of growing essentially.
Totally. And I haven't even launched it yet, but as part of this, mate is going to be living the dream motorsport. Like that's absolutely where this is going. And not different to you with your semi-pro exercise. This is just me having fun, and there's no specific goal to this. This is just pure stupidity. And I've talked about him before, but like Mark Arsenal, who's behind Fat Lace and Illust, like that guy's my hero. And I always loved that, he's got a, 200SX drift car and a few other things. And like, he's just always out there, taking the car to meets and just hanging out. And
that's the stuff I love. Like It's with the fastback, we
Yeah.
was supposed to take it down to Wodonga. It didn't end up happening, but I just want to take it everywhere. I want other people to experience it and have fun with it.
And that's all I want, because I have had so much fun. Just as as I've picked up a couple of cars and started going to a couple of things, because I've stayed out of a lot of stuff for a lot of years while my son was young. But I'm old enough now where like I can take him and he can come in the car with me, and he thinks it's the best, and it's so nice. I went to Euroday at QR on Saturday, and a mutual friend, Daniel Sharp, he sort of runs the events out there now, and on the door was old James Dean, who I know through photography and years of cars and all this sort of stuff. And he was just helping out on the gate because the fellow who was supposed to do it got sick, and Sharpie rang him. He was like, "Mate, come and help." And while I was chatting with him, he said, "Oh, mate, how good are old shit boxes?" He's actually doing up an old Surf because he's got a Macan, and he's got nice things now, but he's fully gone down that rabbit hole as well, of like just building the old things, and it's so nice, like reconnecting with all these people that I've known in and around the scene for 10, 15, 20 years. Yeah.
It's like all of those guys that have kind of stuck around. So like James, Andrew Foy, Sharpie, they're all exceptional at what they do.
Totally.
And they've managed to kind of create something. So like watching them grow and kind of do what they do, and now they're in a position where like Sharpie's basically running QR, and
he's the events man.
Yeah.
Like, He's it. He's putting the stuff together and making it happen and running the teams and, all the great stuff with roll racing. I've actually asked him to come and join me on the show here. So he's going to come in at some point when he gets a hot minute.
That'd be awesome. But even guys like Foy and James, it's
totally.
like they've, in their industry, they're fantastic.
Mate, they're
like
guns
the quality
at
of
what
their
they do.
content is incredible.
Yeah. Well, James shot my brother Tim. He shot his wedding. And I love that, Foy got his Lotus. Because he's, all he ever wanted to do. I remember back when he had his Civic, and because all he wanted to do was, go and do track stuff. And then he got his Lotus, and now he's got that beautiful, I don't even know what it is, but it's banging.
340 or 400 VTs, yeah.
Beautiful.
And he does great track times.
And then he goes and
well.
smashes it at the track, and I'm like, legend.
That's the dream. Like, and that's, I think a little bit, I'm almost a little jealous of guys like that, where it's that they've found what makes them happy in that. And like for me, it's motorsport. Like it's door-to-door racing. So like I'm still chasing that. And I think when we had the conversation before, I'm like, I'm not sure I really feel like I belong here. It's because I haven't reached my own goals that I want to reach.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Foy, Sharpie, James, all of them are killing it.
Oh, mate, awesome.
And Matthias as well, like Rory, like they've all done incredible things.
And they've kept doing it. And there's just that, the common thread amongst all these people is the persistence. Is, they, despite, many quite often catastrophic, reasonably public failures, they pull themselves back together and they get up and they go again. Yeah. And I respect that no end.
Yeah, like when I wrote the E30 off, I copped no end of grief for that. And the best thing I could do was go back and go straight back to the track.
Go again.
And the writing the E30 off was literally a steering rack failed. It's just one of those things. You get back to it. You have to go back out and just deal with it again. Like you have an accident, you go back to the track and you conquer it.
Mate, it's the greatest, and I can't remember who it's attributed to. It might be Roosevelt or somebody like that. But mate, going from failure to failure with no lack of enthusiasm, and honestly, that's just my whole life. Is that like, fuck that up pretty bad, but it doesn't matter. Let's go again. And because I just don't really care, because stuffing it up doesn't worry me, and like even fairly public failure, you're like, oh, well, I learned something.
Yeah. You might feel a bit down in the dumps, but
sometimes you feel pretty stupid, but learned something.
Yeah, exactly.
And I care way less now.
the more I stuff up, the more I give it, like the less shits I give about actually making small mistakes. And it's what I've tried sort of saying to Ellie. Like she still is kind of getting past that stage and it's like, just make mistakes. She gets really apologetic when she makes mistakes. I'm like, I don't care. I would prefer you to try stuff and make mistakes than not do anything. I think more people need to do that these days. They just need to go out and fuck shit up.
Absolutely. Totally bugger it up. and go, that's an investment in my education.
Yeah.
Because honestly, that's the only reason that I have any talent in anything that I do, because I've cocked up so much stuff so badly that I've like figured out, that's bad, but this is good.
And it's how I worked out what I'm actually good at.
Yeah.
Like where the things that I kind of excel more at, like a logical processes and problem solving kind of front. I absolutely suck at like sales and creative digital, that kind of stuff. I can't do it. Can't for the life of me. But there's other stuff that I am good at. So then it's just a case of, hey, I've identified where my weakness is. Find someone who can help me.
Absolutely. And you just pay for somebody to do that, and you just do the bit that you're good at.
Exactly.
And be okay with that and go, it's all right. I don't have to be good at everything, because if you find the bit that you are good at, double down on that and just do that.
I cop that a lot, where particularly in groups where people will be like, oh, you're a know-it-all. And it's like, no, I comment on stuff I know about. And even if I am wrong on something, I'll own it straight up. I won't argue the fact. But if I don't know something, I just shut up and stay out of the conversation. I read and learn.
Absolutely.
And yeah, like people don't kind of grasp that. You can make mistakes, comment on what you do know about and go down that path. And if you don't know anything about it, shut up and learn from people that do.
Absolutely. And I'm not, I'm not building a hill to die on. I'm not going to fight a point if I'm wrong. Like if I'm wrong, if I'm presented with new information, I go, didn't know that. Okay, cool. Like...
That you don't gain anything from it. You just look like an idiot trying to argue a position that you're wrong.
Absolutely. And it's so wonderful to learn new things and then be a little bit smarter than I was the day before. And, it's part of what I enjoy about all this stuff and the conversations that I have is getting to know people better and like just learning more stuff. And it's just the best, acknowledging that you don't know everything and that's okay is surprisingly important.
Yeah.
And like pretending that you have excessive amounts of knowledge, like pretending that that's the easiest way to get yourself into trouble.
Well, that's why with semi-pro, a lot of the information, some of the track stuff I will do personally, some of the suspension stuff I'll do personally, but it's why I've built relationships with like Chris O'Brien from Shockworks, Andrew Brilliant, like Mark from Godzilla. Like there's so many people that know drastically more than I ever will. There is no point in me trying to relay that information or trying to pretend to be the professional on it. I'm not.
And you're so much better off, and we were talking about this earlier, is that, you reach a point where you realise that it's also wonderful to just be able to refer over to those people and go, that person is the absolute expert in that niche. They're my go-to. Go and talk to them.
And even if you are an expert in your niche, there's people that are more expert. So like part of what I've really enjoyed from my end, the stuff with Hyundai, is Bailey and Josh Buchan, who are their two TCR drivers. They're 1 and 2 in the championship. I've had the opportunity to get them to drive my car, drive the car they've driven, see their data and go, okay, this is where I can learn from. And I'm not back up at that level. I think I probably was 7-8 years ago. But now I need to relearn some of that. Like I need to get that feel back in the car, and seeing the stuff that they do, like actual experts in the field, is like, okay, yeah, that's what I've been doing wrong. I can learn from that. Always look for, there's no point, like it's the most thrown around line there is. Never be the smartest person in the room.
No, mate, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
And that is absolutely the truth. Whereas if you go into everything going, I'm delighted to learn, or I'm just delighted to discuss. Like, tell me, show me, teach me.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a lovely place to find yourself. And look, unfortunately, I do think you require a bit of the passing of time.
Yeah, you need to learn that. I definitely wasn't.
For such things.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't either, because, I was desperately trying to prove myself as well. And you're trying to, what do they say, mate? Fake it till you make it. And
I think there's a certain amount of fake it till you make it.
There's like a bit of that. You've got to have the confidence.
You need to have the confidence. But you need to learn from people. There's chucking, and you still need an ego. It's kind of this balancing act.
Totally.
You need to be able to take the advice and still have a little bit of your own ego to go, okay, once I learn this, I can improve and be better.
Absolutely.
And that's where people kind of...
But you're also only trying to outdo yourself.
Yeah.
That's the big one, is you're not trying to be better than somebody else. You're trying to be better than you were yesterday.
Exactly.
And that is a magical place.
When you stop trying to prove yourself to everyone else, that's when you kind of get these opportunities. That was a big one for me. Like when I started trying to work more with people rather than compete. That opens up so many more doors because people want to work with you.
Correct, because you're not, and this is a crazy thing, and I even realise this with other agencies and stuff, is that like some of my best clients now are other agencies because like we work together and we're like, you're really good at that bit, we're really good at that bit. Oh, hey, how cool.
Yeah.
Because there's enough work out there for everybody is the thing that I didn't realise and I didn't appreciate is that you don't need everything. And
you don't need all of
better,
it. You can't do all of it.
and you're better to pass some of it off. The stuff that you're not, correctly aligned with, you're far better off to let that go rather than to bugger yourself up in the process.
Yeah. You either need to be a massive organisation and that takes time, you have to hire the right people, or you have to work with the people around you.
Correct.
You've got to have the right people doing stuff because like we both know I got burnt for 150 grand or something by one of my agents just doing the wrong thing.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, you have to be ready to get rid of the people that are wrong and find the people that are right.
Correct.
Don't hang around. Don't try and train them. Just
no. If they don't work, they'll never work.
Yeah.
Because if they don't, if you don't follow a similar ethos, and that's the thing, if you don't have your North Star, whatever you want to call it, if you don't have that same belief structure, it'll never work.
Precisely. Yep. Just hire for really niche sort of roles. Make sure they're specialised in that. Have the systems in place and. That was a big learning curve for me, but that applies to everything. Like it applies to absolutely everything in life.
And I do think that is the gift of, working in your own business and having to make those decisions, because I watch people where they are just, in the role. So they work for the company and they can make the decisions because they got a budget and all that sort of stuff, but it's not their money.
Yeah.
And it is a very different decision when it is your money. Like the risk profile is significantly different.
It is drastically, and that's quite often sometimes where you make mistakes. Like early on, and that was one of the big mistakes I made, not getting a good accountant in. Like things along those lines, get a good accountant in, get a decent bookkeeper in, get someone in who can set up your basic infrastructure for IT and grow from that, and then hire someone who can do your policies and so you can protect yourself. If you try and do it after you've already started, it's really bloody hard. You're trying to clean up the mess because that's probably the reason you've gone, I probably should have got someone to do policies on this or systems.
And mate, mine was exactly the same, where I did it all arse about and had to fix it all later.
Yep.
And that's the problem. That's actually why I find motorsport and all that stuff. Motorsport to me feels so pure and so simple, because business is such a multifaceted beast where you've got to be so good at so many things at such a high level, whereas like, mate, this is just like cars.
It is just cars. It's not serious.
It's not serious at all. It's like just cars and people and a bit of fun, and I think that's why I love it so much. It's part of why I'm so drawn to it, because you've got to work at such a high level. Like it's not something that if you want to do it well, like you got to be, top of the tree to make a dent and to shift the needle, but behind all of it, it is just fun.
It is. Like the period on track is just like the being at the track, getting it all done is just, it is the most fun you can have.
Oh, without a doubt.
There is something about getting out in the car, trying to wrestle it around the racetrack. That is all fun and games. Like there is nothing more enjoyable in the world. And it is pure. Like it's you against the machine, against whoever else. But yeah, there's still similarities with business if you want to make it there. It's the on-track stuff is great. The off-the-track stuff, it's more work than business sometimes.
Oh, it's so much work. It is so much work.
Getting to the track. Like I remember one of my first events was Adelaide. It was Melilla. I think after wrapping the car, we drove. Sorry, actually, it was Bathurst. We wrapped the car for 2 days. Then I got like 1 or 2 hours sleep across the 2 nights, then had to drive overnight to Bathurst to then line up for my first like qualifying and practice at Bathurst. It's like the amount of effort that you need to put in to go out and race cars. And early on, I didn't have a system. I didn't know. And that's where it's like you have to have systems for this stuff if you want to be successful in it.
Well, you do, and that's why I'm so excited about what you're doing. Like in terms of the stuff that you're doing with semi-pro and making motorsport information and access to information and access to experience, but then at the same time, you're out doing the stuff with Hyundai and developing the car for World Time Attack. Like there's just a lot of good things going on here. Like it's just an exciting time for you.
It's incredible. And like 3 or 4 months ago, I didn't think. Even 5 months ago, I didn't think a lot of it was kind of possible. I was like, look, I need to just focus on my normal business, get that operating, and then things kind of just fell into place. And it was just from going, for the last couple of years, I've just been doing the track days for fun, just whatever. I hung out with the guys at Hyundai because I like them, not because I wanted anything out of them. Like I enjoy all of their company. Like Jeff is brilliant. Jeff is always a sort of fountain of knowledge. And like when we were down at MFest, we ended up partying with Till and a few others. And it was a great night. Like Till's the VP of End Performance globally. Just awesome guy. And same with the rest of the team that hung around. Like Michelle is like, it's more of a family sort of vibe than your normal corporate gig.
Just good humans.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're there because they love it. And that's the fundamentals of something good happening.
Yes, exactly. But now it's just a case of delivering on it all. Like
Absolutely.
putting the content out and making a lot of the content. There's so much time in that. Like people that do YouTube, I think Rory touched on this as well. The amount of work that is involved in that is just ridiculous. How they make it, I have no clue.
As I said, mate, I wanted the experience because my son wants to do it, and I have nothing but respect for anyone that has built and maintained a YouTube channel. Holy crap, it's a lot of work.
Yep.
Like it is phenomenal.
Ellie's community with Twitch.
Yeah.
Like how
what's she up to now? How many people she got on that?
I think 6,500 or 7,000.
Yeah.
Which for Twitch is actually really, really good because there's no organic marketing. It's not like on YouTube where you've got suggested videos. Like it's if you're a partner, you kind of get shared.
Yeah.
But building that initial foundation, like she'll usually sort of start setting up for a stream at about 4, 5 o'clock. Start streaming at 6 or 7, and then she'll stream until 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning. Then she'll wake up at 9, 10 and start doing the debt collection work. It's like I don't think people understand the amount of dedication that is kind of required to achieve those results. Like one of my favorite YouTubers, Christian Guzman, like the amount of hours that he puts in, his dedication and attention to detail is something I try and strive to kind of follow. Most people won't ever do it or they won't understand it. And when they look at people that are doing the social media and influencer thing, I don't think they understand exactly how much work a lot of those people put in.
It's like it is literally a 24-hour a day job. Yep. Like you are always on because you're always going, right, I've got to do another thing. Because it is like even just with my efforts to post one reel a day, like that all by itself is a monstrous effort, and that's with no equipment and it's just trying to do a thing with your phone, and I'll sometimes get to the end of the day and go, oh crap, I've got to post something because I've got to get something out. And so people who are doing it, and I'm not fully commercialized on it or anything like that. It's an absolute pig of a job.
Yeah. Yep. I think the people that are lucky that they've just built something cool and they've kind of fallen into it. But people that have kind of tried to go down that path themselves to make a career, they've done it as a plan is solid.
Oh, and this was, the fellow I was talking about earlier, Jason, he, it took him 3 years to crack YouTube. Mm. So just 3 years of grind. And I guess that's sort of my thoughts with it as well is, I'm 1 and a bit years in. So I've got,
another year and a bit to go.
Another year and a bit to go with zero return for effort. And that's brutal. I think the most watched video, I could be wrong, but I think the most watched video I've got is like 7,000 views on YouTube.
It's not bad.
But like that's, most of the rest of them have like 1,000 if you're lucky.
Yeah. I'm not, I think I've got most are kind of between 1,000 to sort of 2,000, but then I've got a few that are outliers that are, I think one of the shorter videos has like 25 or 30,000 views. But
it's brutal.
It's so hard. And I hate social media. Like if I had my way, I would just go and drive. But the reality is I don't have the capital to go and just do that. I need to go and have a brand and develop it and go down that path. I think a lot of people aren't willing to kind of sacrifice doing what they kind of hate to try and achieve what they love. I think that's one of the hardest things for people to kind of get their head around is that, okay, you want to go to the racetrack or you want to go traveling around the world. All of those people that are doing those things have busted their ass behind the scenes and have given up so many other opportunities and having a normal life. You need to go and give that stuff up if you want to go and do it. Or you need to, it's not a bad thing, you need to accept, okay, I'm going to work a 9 to 5 and go on holiday once a year or whatever. Like that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to go and chase the social media kind of dream or racing driver dream or whatever it is, you have to sacrifice everything. Nothing
less than full commitment will get you there. And this is my other one, is full commitment with no reward.
Yes.
No reward for a very long time.
Yep.
And I look at things so differently now. And again, I do think part of it is the benefit of age, is that lots of the things, because I'm still starting a ton of new stuff now, like there's stuff that I don't even talk about that I'm working on that is either, in the process or in action or in early phases. They're 5, 10, 15, 20-year projects.
Yep.
And I'm just starting them now in my mid-40s because I know that, with diligence, that they'll all go the right way. There's a wonderful saying, the best time to plant the seed is 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
Yeah, precisely.
And I'm like, that's great. Because, you don't go, I'm too old or it's too far or it's too late. It's not.
No. Even if you do something, just a little bit every single day on it, that's all it kind of takes to gradually grow it. And like, I'm not going to sort of say the hours I work because it's not something that should be glorified.
No.
But
it's a lot.
Yeah.
Because again, it's like my days start at 4:30 and I generally go to bed at 10 because I try to regulate my sleep because I'm old and if I don't sleep, I'm useless. But like I am on.
Yeah.
Like I am on from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to bed and I'm attached to my phone. And, that's not something I'm proud of because even, my son and I were playing Mario Maker this morning and, in between that I had to send and respond to a few things and I'm not proud of that. And I talk to him about it and I go, Daddy does these things because, Dad has to work his butt off.
You want to give him an opportunity and like his own...
Absolutely. And I say, look, for this amount of time, but, today is a work day. I'm like, Saturday, Sunday, Friday night, no problems. Dad can play unrestricted, no problems. But, you might be on school holidays, but Daddy doesn't get school holidays. And explaining to him that, yes, I can do this for a bit, but, like, these are my sacrifices. And I choose these sacrifices. And again, they're not things that I'm proud of. I wish I could just be a perfect father, but I can't because I have so much that I have to do. Like it's just burning inside me and I have to do these things.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, you might not spend the time now, but if you do the things that you love, and now, as you said, your son's getting to the age where you can come along to the events, you get to share that passion.
Well, the joy is, mate, is I'm at a place where I can do other things. And, we just spent 3.5 weeks on the road together. So,
that would have been amazing.
Yeah, we my wife and my boy, like we drove to Tasmania and so, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for, 3.5 weeks. And, those are things that I can do and still, run the business because I can't stop working, but I can be more flexible.
Yes.
So, I can give myself fully to certain things, but again, I have to choose that I have to sacrifice some of this stuff.
Yeah, it is. You need to kind of make those long-term decisions, and some of those will affect the short term.
Mate, they do.
You're going to give your son and yourself opportunities that no one else will be able to do.
Well, you just have to, and I think that's the thing is if you want to do extraordinary things in your lifetime, you can, and this is something that I really love. You can have anything you want, but you can't have everything.
Precisely. That's 100% right. You have to. Sorry, trying to think the best way.
But you've got to choose.
Yeah,
you go, these handful of things are super important to me.
Yes.
My businesses are super important to me. You know, developing, you know, making sure that he has, you know, a roof over his head, a good education, you know, and, you know, something for the future that is of critical importance to me. And, you know, making sure that, you know, my wife and him are taken care of. That
Precisely.
is the absolute importance. And I will move heaven and earth.
And
make sure
that's
that's
the biggest
okay.
motivator that you can kind of have. And
Absolutely.
I've never really spoken publicly about this, or publicly like I'm famous, but to people around me. So, like, I fell short on a lot of the things that I said I would do, like with finishing cars or whatever. And a lot of that was like my parents were elderly. So Dad had dementia for the last 10 years of his life. He passed a couple of years ago, and cancer. So I helped look after them, and juggling all of that stuff with then trying to follow your own dreams. Like, you have to, part of also doing that was then going, I want to be able to give Mum the last however long she's got left, God bless her, opportunities. I don't want her sitting alone at home to kind of do nothing and sit there and whatever. I want to go and take her around places. So, like, a lot of the reason I work so hard is and try and chase some of these other opportunities is I know if they pay off, I will have the capacity to be able to do that for her and for Ellie. So, like, family and outside motivators are a massive, massive motivation to try and succeed with those things. I think it's a guy thing where we try and sort of provide for those that we love.
Desperately, mate. And it's, you know, as you said, it's not something that I guess we publicly share. But, you know, I work my ring out for them because, you know, and in turn, you know, my wife sacrificed so much for me to be able to do this business and for me to be able to do the motorsport things I've done over the years. Like, she shouldered the load. And, you know, as I've said to her, I'm like, you know, you helped get it going. Now it's my turn. You know, it's my turn to pay this back. And, you know, I've got to double down on everything I do because otherwise it won't work.
Yeah, exactly.
And if I drop the ball, you know, we're you know.
If you're going to half-ass any of it, you might as well just go work for someone.
Correct.
You can go work for someone, get $100,000 a year or whatever it is.
Absolutely. And just deal with that.
Deal with that. Yeah. There's no point.
Get
If you
my
work
4
for
weeks
yourself.
a year. Yeah. But I have not chosen that path because I don't want that. And I fully accept that, you know, sometimes I'll be a bad husband, I will be a bad father, I will be a bad son, I will be a bad everything.
I'm a terrible boyfriend. Like, I just came back from being up in Cairns. Like, I was away for 4 or 5 days after we did the stuff down in Sydney, and Ellie had to deal with some of the business stuff. She's home alone, and it's like it's a struggle. Like,
it's terrible. And again, this is the flip side. This is the, you know, the other side of all the stuff that you see on the internet that, you know, is not broadly spoken about. But, you know, there's a lot of pain. And, you know, and I've said it to my wife, and in particular with all the motorsport stuff I did over the years, that, you know, I caused her a lot of grief. And, you know, I had real fights with my business partners because I sacrificed a lot. And, you know, it wasn't just hurting me, but it was hurting people near and dear to me. Yeah. But I knew that if I didn't do everything in my power, that, you know, that stuff would go away and I would never get those opportunities again and it would all just be lost.
Exactly. So, like, we've had the same thing with Ellie. Like, the decisions I've made, some of them have, like, they all impact her, and some of those she doesn't particularly like, which is fair enough. Like, some of the people we've kind of involved with work and stuff, it hasn't worked out with them. And, yeah, it's those decisions that I've made I kind of have to deal with, and yeah, but all we can do is kind of do the best job that we possibly can to try and provide and make something.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah. And getting better at owning those decisions and
Yes.
going, look, sometimes I am going to be a bit of a dick and I'm
Yep.
really sorry. It's not on purpose. And I'm sorry that I sometimes do things that are less than ideal.
And sometimes I'm tired and cranky. And
Absolutely. It's, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Like, there's a reason why a lot of people don't make something of themselves, because people don't realise what it takes
Yep.
to make something of yourself.
Yep. And even then, like, even you can put in all this work and you can fail.
And still get nothing.
You can still get absolutely nothing. So, yeah.
But as the joke goes, you can fail at something you don't like. So,
Exactly. That's why, like, if I just focused on the debt collection stuff, I'd probably be in a better position. But it's not my passion. No. It's never going to be. I can't put in those hours of what I do with semi-pro and motorsport stuff. I will work myself to the bone to go and race cars and do whatever I need to for my sponsors and supporters.
Because it's fun.
Exactly.
And it's good times. And you end up with these wonderful relationships and these wonderful friendships.
Yep.
Because that was the thing. If I only knew you through debt collection, odds are we wouldn't have had any relationship, because I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
but because
exactly.
it's cars,
Exactly.
We can talk, at length forever.
Exactly.
Because of that wonderful common bond.
Yeah, you meet so many incredible people like Alan, Ian, Sam Law down in Sydney. Like, there's a whole heap of people just in my time down in Sydney that I've met that I never would have. Now and then, all the people
yes,
up
this
here.
was when you said you'd moved to Sydney, and we're like, well, what's wrong with you?
I was contemplating it, but like the group of people like Greg Gregson's his Facebook username, runs Sydney Composites. Like, there's so many good people that I've met, and same up here, like Minnie, Ben Keeley, and a whole heap of others that are just like,
Mate, good humans.
yeah, like Daniel Harding. I think Daniel Harding owns a Suzuki Swift. You know the one?
Don't know.
Orange. Originally had like a G13B in it. It was yellow at that stage. Now it's orange, turbo K swap. Did a 54 or something on QR Sprint Track. Just okay. I met that guy on a mountain run down at Glowworms on the Gold Coast, and we've been mates for 17 years now. 17, 18 years. And it's just like cars give you that opportunity to make those friendships.
Absolutely, with people that you'd never cross paths with otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we all do different things, but we're friends because of cars.
Because of the cars.
Yeah.
And I think it's why I love it so much, is that it does, and it's opened so many doors for me and so many friendships and so many opportunities that, I couldn't have even imagined in my wildest dreams, as a boy reading magazines, wishing I could have something to do with anything
Exactly.
in this world.
It's like Ellie's going to Goodwood. It's like that never would have happened.
Which is madness.
Yeah.
Like, that's still on my, on my wish list.
Same. I'm like, I hate you. I really want to take that ticket.
Out of control.
And like, it's just, I think going back to the Hyundai stuff, I hate doing it because people are probably sick of it. But like, I think that's why so many people enjoy the Hyundai community. A lot of these people are new to cars, or they're coming from like the Golf R kind of, we've had a heap from A45s and RS3s. There's such a community because Hyundai put on all of these events. So like, every state they do a drive day, and then every state they do a track day.
That's
where
awesome.
they'll have cars and stuff out, and they have like engineers and mechanics and driver. Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. So the one that I went down to at Wodonga, they have John Boston from Track School, another great guy. So he brings a couple of instructors along. They had Greg Swinney down there doing mechanical stuff, and a couple of people from the local motorsport TAFE. And they supply sausages, coffee, all that kind of stuff, advice, driver coaching. Like Bailey Sweeney and Josh Buckham were there doing passenger laps in brand new i30N and i20N, and they can take your car out and do all that kind of stuff. And they do that in every single state.
See, that's amazing. That's like good old-fashioned grassroots
It's incredible. Like
support. That's amazing.
NFest, this year they've booked out Sydney Motorsport Park. Like, there's a drive day the day after or the day before, whatever the plan is with it. But they actually get involved, and it's just $25.
What?
For the track day.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. And like the day before, they set up a massive drive. They have coffee on that. Like, it's just They do a dinner at night as well. Like, it's a whole event.
That's
like,
real community building. That's really beautiful.
Yeah, and I think that's why so many people kind of enjoy the Hyundai or the N brand, because they, same deal with us.
Yeah.
I'm a debt collector, you're social media and marketing, and otherwise we would have no real relationship.
There'd be no
It's
crossover
cars.
otherwise. Yeah, totally.
So it's the same in that community. Everyone's from different backgrounds and they
Get together because of the cars.
Yeah.
Now, mate, to bring this whole discussion back on track, talk to me about World Time Attack 2023, because we're getting close now, and I'm really interested in what's left. What do you got left to do on the development of the car? You got any testing left? What's happening?
Really,
is
not
it all
much.
top secret?
No, nothing's top secret. We've been really open about everything on this, and that's what we want to. We've got different companies in the Hyundai scene that we like, that we're getting to work with. So Impossible Fab is supplying the turbo kit, intake, intercooler, and oil cooler. So that's all we've got left, and moving the rear wing. We're done basically for development. This is the most organised I've ever been.
I was going to say, mate, don't you have to be? Isn't it the 11th hour and nobody sleeps for the 7 days before?
I think I take that to the nth degree.
What month are we in?
Yeah,
it's so early.
So last year we were literally welding the seat because we borrowed Sheepy's car. I was welding my seat into their seat. Like into the car.
See, that's more like it. That's
it was still hot.
Prep we know. Oh my!
It's still hot during the first session. But yeah, so like this year we're all pretty much.
Wow! Look at you, mate. You're all grown up.
I
You're
know.
prepared months out.
I'm usually prepared.
I'm disgusted.
I'm usually pretty well prepared. Minnie, who I love and is the best fabricator I've ever met, I will repeat that forever, is not the most organised person. So trying to kick his ass into gear to get stuff done is difficult. But yeah, we've got the rear wing, and that's canards to make as well. And there's a bigger front splitter coming from Sydney Composites. So that's all really, it's a couple of days of work.
That's
and
it.
IFX will have the car in July or early August.
Yeah.
We'll fit the turbo kit, get it tuned, and then we'll do
because we're in July now, mate.
I know. We'll do a test day in August, and then the car will stay down in Sydney until
that's amazing.
Until we're ready to go.
Until the big day. Geez, I'm looking forward to seeing that. I'm fully invested in World Time Attack this year because I haven't been for a couple of years because, again, I've been so far out of it, and I've been, again, attempting to be a dad for a couple of years there because that's hard yards.
He's old enough to come along.
Those first few years. Do you know he's not into cars the way I am?
Just give it time.
Yeah. And look, I don't want to rail him into it either. If he's interested in it, I'd like it to be on his terms.
Maybe push him away so it's a little cheaper.
Look, honestly, he's like super down with video games, and I'm like, mate, I'm so in to support you in that. I'm like, let's do video games. That's a much better thing.
That's much easier to make a career out of.
Dad's too poor for you to do motor racing, mate. I'm like, that's.
You've got contacts though. That's the network thing again.
I'm still not. I know what it takes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm ready to invest in a lot of things, but I'm like, mate, no. I'll buy you a sim. We'll get the best sim we can find, and you can be a sim racer. But yeah, there's no way.
That's just a stepping stone. You're not going to stop it if he ends up wanting to do it.
He can do it off his own back. But yeah, luckily he's not interested in cars, so we're reasonably safe there.
This year's going to be massive. So
but it's going to be so big.
Baker has announced a fair few things already, and there's heaps more to come. There's a few things that haven't. It's going to be a really exciting year. I think it's probably the biggest international contingent. Ferris will be pretty awesome because I think that's probably the most serious competitor we've had from the US. So it's going to be, I don't think he'll be competitive with RP968 or Tanuki, it's now called. But I think it'd still be a pretty cool show. Yeah. Twin turbo V8, that's hard to knock.
It's going to be massive for it to be back, in its correct time of year and all the things, and to have a full contingent of internationals again. It's just
But even the people in Australia, we've got some really cool builds. Like what Wayne Lee's now done with Tanuki, taking it VR38, the Infinity Wing Aero. Then the Elise, the Exige that, not sure of the guy's name, but Andrew Brilliant was designing the aero on that. Then you have even in Club Sprint is so serious now. The leading builds are $250,000 builds. like Jimmy's Evo, we mentioned before, Jonathan Wong's Supra. Then you've got Trent Grubel's in, I can't recall, WRX of some sort, one of the Sydney teams. But they're all really serious builds. Like they all make massive amounts of horsepower. They're doing lap times of what Tilton. Sorry, not Tilton. Sorry, complete mental blank on that. What Cyber Evo and those guys were doing.
Yeah, back in the early days. I think that's the craziest thing is that, like the lower classes are now hitting what were, competition winning times in the early days of it.
Yeah, exactly. And even open class, like there's the Extreme GTR that's had a massive jump in power, and that's now gone to Sydney Composites Aero. Like there's a whole heap of cars, and there's still more from that category. I don't think people realize. Like one of my loves, or my two loves in motorsport, is aero and suspension stuff. Aero still isn't really being touched in open and club sprint. There is still way more to come. And like, I made a prediction back in, I think, 2018 or 19 that there would be club sprint cars that would do 132s, 134s. Everyone laughed at me about it. I'm like, it's coming. The rules will allow it. Someone just needs to fork up. And now the aero that Sydney Composites have built is brilliant. Like it's just a bolt-on kit. Like there is fabrication to do for it, but it's a bolt-on splitter and you pick a rear wing. And the cars have gotten that much quicker, but there's still no one's done, other than Jonathan Wong, has done full custom aero. So like all of these, like Jimmy's car and all those cars that suit the rules perfectly, you don't see stuff that will get down to like 132s, 131s pretty comfortably in club sprint, which is V8 supercar lap times almost.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. That is proper fast.
Yep, it's incredible. And then like the pro cars, they're always just the next level. Yeah, they're batshit. There's so much money in those things. But yeah, like it's going to be a massive year. So I'm pumped.
It's so good. Because mate, we've been chatting for 2.5 hours here, if you can believe that. So off the back of that, I think it's very important for you to tell people where they could follow you around the internet. Where if people want to follow Andrew Price and Semi-Pro Motorsport, where do they look for you?
Facebook, Instagram and TikTok will be Semi-Pro Motorsport, and then Andrew Price Racing. That's pretty simple. I think I've got them all uniform across most of them. I tried hard to do
if you didn't.
I tried really hard to make sure that happened. But yeah, that's where you can find me. So most of it, I'm on YouTube as well. So I've just been posting sort of our fastest laps, and the plan is to start doing some more vlog style content and then technical stuff. So I haven't worked out where the technical stuff is going to go, whether it's YouTube or Facebook or wherever, but we'll work that out.
Mate, if we've learned anything from this conversation, you're going to put them everywhere.
Yeah, that's true. They'll go everywhere. Our mate Scott put them everywhere.
Oh, I'm not doing it. Andrew, look, thank you for coming and spending this time with me and, sharing your experiences and...
No, thank you for having me.
All the exciting things that you're up to, mate. It's been really lovely, to watch your journey and watch your persistence and, to see you really making something out of it, mate. So it's been, very proud to see what you're doing because I know how hard you worked at this.
There's still a way to go, but yeah, I'm over the moon with where we've gotten.
Chipping away.
And what the future kind of holds. So we'll get there.
Andrew Price.
Thank you very much, Scott.
Thank you,
Appreciate
buddy.
it. Thank you.